A Jew family cultivator calls for the clan's people to follow him to the clan grounds, and Li Liu cups his hands at me in cheerful farewell, and there is my confirmation. The best cuts were carved up before any of us knew there was a table. Li Liu himself has no idea, but the upper echelons of the Jew family certainly did. Nobody arrives at a brand new immortal city and finds clan grounds waiting unless they signed for them months ago. Then I come back to my senses and notice the spiritual chi, and my mood improves considerably. Shimriol says we have only just come through the gate and the density already beats the Green Bamboo Mountain Market. He cannot picture the air inside a Foundation Establishment cultivator's grounds. I agree with him and add that this is exactly why the cultivators outside the gates never stop arriving. Within half a year, this will be the most prosperous immortal city in Wool State. There is nothing else to do about it, so I tell the group we may as well go and rent somewhere to live. The rental office is a crush. The manager works the queue with the patience of a man who has said the same words 400 times. We have come at a good time, he tells us. With Immortal Master Yoke presiding, the city is split into inner and outer layers of differing spiritual chi, and prices are marked plainly. There are still countless vacant rooms, he says. Fellow Taoists preparing for Foundation Establishment may even share the rent on an immortal cave graded for a Foundation Establishment cultivator, which tells us what the air inside is worth. Shimriol and Y-Boy came in braced for the numbers, and the numbers still move their faces. They tell me they will not be coming with me. For those two, Foundation Establishment is not a plan, it is a word other people use. The most they can stretch to, teeth gritted, is the inner city, and even that runs 5 low-grade spirit stones a month. A first-grade medium-grade talisman master or alchemist earns somewhere around a dozen spirit stones a month without cutting into his own cultivation. So anyone can do the sum. I nod and tell them we are all cultivating inside the same walls and will see each other often. And they smile and cup their hands, and their smiles are bitter around the edges. This is the moment the gap between us stops being polite. 10 years ago, I was a chi-refining 4th-layer cultivator and a first-grade medium-grade talisman master, barely a step ahead of either of them. 10 years is not long, and I am somewhere they can no longer see. They watched me earn it too, watched the grinding years while they married, raised children, and poured half of everything they had into descendants instead of themselves. I take my time and settle on a place at the foot of the mountain, in a stretch the manager calls 2nd tier for spiritual chi. He compliments my eye and explains that Immortal Master Yuk prepared that band specifically for cultivators readying themselves for Foundation Establishment. The rent is 200 spirit stones a year. Handing that over stings, even for me. A first-grade high-grade talisman master can earn 200 in a month or two, or in a single month with a good run of orders. But a loose cultivator saving toward Foundation Establishment pinches every stone. The materials cost spirit stones, the defensive magical artifacts cost spirit stones, daily cultivation eats them, and any man with a family bleeds more still. Holding the jade token for my new cave, I finally understand why the two great sects wanted this city built together. In plain mortal terms, the place is a gold mine with walls around it. It also gathers nearly every capable loose cultivator in Wool State and the countries next door into one place. Recruitment or something worse. That is bad news for the Divine Sword sect. None of that is my business. My business is to keep my head down, cultivate hard, break through to the chi refining 9th layer as early as I can, and start assembling my Foundation Establishment once the situation stops moving. Shimriol and Y-Boy came here for their children, so those children get a better place to start than their fathers had. I came here for myself, and at my age I have stopped apologizing for it. The Immortal Cave sits nearest the Yunshan waterfall, in a row of finely built pavilions where the spiritual chi runs thick. Above them, the Foundation Establishment cultivators' grounds rise into the peaks. 200 spirit stones well spent, I decide, standing in my own courtyard for the first time. There is a lotus pond, the pavilion is beautifully made, and the greenhorned ox is already shouldering its way happily through the flower bushes. So close to the waterfall, the water spiritual chi hangs visibly in the air, which suits cultivators of water attribute techniques and suits wood attribute practitioners just as well, since water nourishes wood. With the Everspring art at the supreme realm, I can feel the mana in my body running livelier within the first hour. The environment of an immortal cave has nuances I never had the money to learn about, and finding it out firsthand at 50 is its own small pleasure. Over the following months, Chinseon City swells. Loose cultivators keep pouring through the gates, and neighbors appear all around my cave. Everyone is a chi-refining late-stage cultivator with Foundation Establishment on the brain, dutifully calling on the rest to get acquainted. I notice quickly that almost everyone who can afford this band of the mountain has a trade. Talisman masters are the most common, alchemists next, while artifact forgers and formation masters are nearly non-existent. Then there are the ones who walk around trailing a murderous aura, who make their living hunting demon beasts. The rest are late-stage cultivators with weak skills or none at all, splitting the rent among a few friends, or moving in as married couples. Inside my cave, my second-grade spirit brush runs across the paper like something alive, and the finished talisman comes up glowing with spiritual light. A first-grade, high-grade talisman of high quality. That is the real gift of this city, not the scenery. So many cultivators arrive every month that my handful of talismans makes no ripple in the market. With a little caution and a few different faces, I can sell everything I draw. A normal high-grade talisman master clears a little over 1,000 spirit stones in a year once materials and expenses come out. If I drew flat out, I could pull in more than 10,000. Which I will not do, because a loose cultivator who suddenly glows with money attracts exactly the kind of visitor I just had killed. The bigger problem is the demon core. Handed to an alchemist, a good batch of materials yields 3 foundation establishment pills, and a poor batch still yields 1. Only appalling luck or a novice produces ruined pills. My spiritual root is low grade, so even with the Everspring art pushed to its limit, I will want 2 pills at minimum, and 3 to feel safe. Buying 1 foundation establishment pill is an ordinary thing for a man in my position to do. Buying 2 or 3 is a signboard advertising that something about me does not add up. So the approach has to be 2-pronged. I prepare the materials myself and have them refined, and whether the furnace gives me 1 pill or 2, I look for a chance to buy 1 more at auction. Between my standing as a talisman master and my share of what came off the pillaging cultivators that day with Unyo, a single purchase sits comfortably inside what people already believe about my finances. 2 foundation establishment pills in hand before I go into seclusion. That is the number, and I do not go in a stone under it. My lifespan reads 52 of 124. My realm reads Chi refining 9th layer at 18 of 100. When I open my eyes in the cultivation cave, the mana rolling off me stirs the air. The Everspring art at the Supreme Realm has made it purer than my grade deserves. A year and a half in Cheonseon City, and my speed has beaten my own estimate by a wide margin. I am 52 years old, and I broke through to the Chi refining 9th layer 6 months ago. Back at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, that breakthrough would have taken another half year at the least, and knowing it stirs up more feeling than I expected. If a rented second-tier cave does this, I cannot imagine what the air is like inside the caves of the 3 golden core cultivators above me. This is precisely why the spiritual veins of the world get fought over by people who can afford to fight. Wool State has stayed relatively stable through the whole year and a half, which is its own small miracle. I push open the attic doors and walk out into a courtyard where the greenhorned ox is lying flat in the pond, enjoying itself with the Yunshin waterfall rumbling beyond the wall. I tell the animal it is a lazy fool and was not born a water buffalo. It comes up in a sheet of spray, presses its head against my leg, and complains at length. I take 2 handfuls of spiritual plant out of my storage pouch and scratch the old scar on its forehead while it eats. The one thing a spirit pet has that a cultivator does not is trust. 32 years of cultivation, the Chi refining 9th layer at 50, and I can say the trip through this world has not been wasted. From outside my cave, the city lies open below, inner ring and outer ring both roaring. In under 2 years, the place has changed past recognition. Cultivators everywhere, noise carrying up the mountain. Foundation establishment cultivators cut across the sky as if flight cost nothing. Cheonseon City is now the strongest loose cultivator city in Wool State and every country bordering it, and people have started calling it the Holy Land for loose cultivators without irony. The Foundation establishment cultivators living on the peaks behind me number in the hundreds, and that does not count the outsiders who came here purely to break through, and then went home covered in glory. Built into the mountains, soaked in spiritual chi, joined to the unknown mountains at the back. Heaven picked the spot itself. A commotion breaks out somewhere below while I am still standing there being sentimental. Voices call out that someone has achieved Foundation establishment, and another notes, it is the 2nd this month. A third answers dryly that people count the successes and never the far greater number who fail. I look at the light going up over the city and let myself be openly envious for a moment. Then I put it away and decide it is time to start preparing. Cheonseon City has been everything I hoped for on the practical side, and Foundation establishment materials that were simply unobtainable before now surface in the markets regularly. Moving from a pond to a lake changes who a man swims beside. My own list is nearly complete except for a few main ingredients, and the one that matters is a demon core. A demon core costs more than a finished Foundation establishment pill, which sounds backward until the gambling is counted. Most alchemists promise 2 pills per furnace, and the core cannot be replaced. Buying 1 also paints a target on a man's back, so the order of operations matters. First, I buy a set of formations for the cave. If a demon core comes into my hands, I keep it invisible and do not carry it to any alchemist until I have reached the great perfection of chi refining. The trouble is that the formations circulating in Cheongsong City are almost all first grade, low grade, or medium grade. High grade formations mean going to one of the two great sects, which means I need to pay a call on Unyo, the personal disciple of Iwa Palace. Since we arrived, she has grown colder and further away by the month, and the talk is that she has offended a great many people, and that nobody dares provoke her over it. She has not contacted any of us once. Shimriol and his wife have taken a courtyard with Weiboy and his daughter. Weiboy feeds them all on his alchemy, while the couple went back to their old trade and opened a Chuizhen tower doing brisk business. Li Liu is the one who surprised me. He has kept grinding away without touching a rank-breaking pill, and his position is that if 2 more years of honest cultivation still will not get him through, then he will use it. That boy has more ambition in him than I gave him credit for. As a live-in son-in-law of the Zhu family, every scrap of strength converts into how the clan speaks to him. He wants the late stage on his own terms, which could lead the 9th layer in sight later. Shimriol swallowed a rank-breaking pill years ago, and has been jammed at the 7th layer ever since. Up among the mountains, beside the Yunxian waterfall, I stop in front of a peak where the spiritual chi hangs heavy and announce myself, saying only that Im Jungan requests an audience. Then I leave a sound transmission jade talisman and turn to go. Foundation establishment cultivators sit for days at a stretch, and some seclude themselves for years, so a message is usually the whole visit. The cave formation opens behind me before I have taken 3 steps. Perfect timing for once in my life, and I turn around with my best smile already on. 2 figures come out instead of 1. Unyo is in white martial attire, brows like distant green peaks, looking every bit the heroic SECT swordswoman. The other is also a Foundation establishment cultivator, dressed as a Taoist nun in gray robes with a whisk over her arm, and when she speaks her voice comes out like celestial music. Unyo is calling her senior sister Myoium and saying her cultivation is profound, and that this junior has benefited greatly, and the nun answers that junior sister Un is being far too modest. Myoium. The name So Myoium goes through my head like a dropped tile. My face tightens before I can stop it, and I bow to both of them as respectfully as I know how. Rumor says Immortal Master Yuk keeps 3 personal disciples, and that the second of them, So Myoium, goes about dressed as a Taoist nun. She is supposed to be at the late Foundation establishment stage, and skilled in lightning arts. The gossip adds that she has charm bred into her bones and detests frivolous male cultivators on sight. Unyo introduces me as a friend of many years who has come to call, and while she says it, she gives the nun a warm smile I have never once seen on her face. So Myoium looks me over calmly, acknowledges me with a small nod, and says only that she sees. Her voice is the kind of ethereal thing that seems to rinse the heart clean, yet every small movement of her brows carries that charm underneath the dignity of the whisk in her hand. A Taoist nun who has managed to be solemn and alluring at the same time. I lower my eyes fast and keep them there, because she is a late Foundation establishment cultivator, and because there is a persistent rumor that she is Immortal Master Yuk's own daughter. I stand aside and study my own breathing until Unyo has seen the woman off, and her expression is frozen over again. A woman's face turns faster than the weather. Then she tells me she received the message I left. First grade, high grade formations, she says, are held by the sects and the great clans and never reach the open market casually. My background is clean and I helped wipe out demonic cult remnants, so she will take me to choose a set today. I cup my hands and thank her, because it is not an excuse. Without connections, those formations simply cannot be bought, and she has made a point of hanging the purchase on my service against the demonic cult, rather than on friendship. She does not want the faintest association with us on any record anywhere. Under the Everspring art at the Supreme Realm, the ice in her has thickened past anything I can account for, until standing near her feels like standing near a block of 1,000-year frost. Inside the Immortal City, the pavilions, lofts, bridges, and covered walks are laid out in proper order. Eaves turned up, beams carved. The painted patterns look ready to crawl off the wood. 2 tall towers dominate the center of the market, Jinbo Tower and Dabo Tower, the landmark buildings of the 2 great sects. In Jinbo Tower, I run straight into shopkeeper Mayo from the old Green Bamboo Mountain Market. He greets me by name, then bends lower when he registers who I came in with. Cultivation level decides everything in this world, and in front of the Foundation establishment cultivator or shopkeeper cannot help shrinking. I smile at him and return the greeting anyway, since running into an old face in a new city is worth something. We go straight up to the 3rd floor. Unyo states my case in that cold, flat voice. The loose cultivator M. Jangan is a high-grade talisman master of clean background who once assisted the sect against demonic cult remnants, and he comes on her recommendation to buy a formation. The shopkeeper who receives us takes my identity token, and his smile turns eager as he assures her that with senior sister Un's guarantee my identity is naturally beyond question. so that is why formations rarely reach the outside world. Every buyer's name gets written down and checked, with a Golden Core Elder's personal disciple guaranteeing me the man does not hesitate a heartbeat. He waves me cheerfully to his seat while Anyo goes on up to the 4th floor alone. He asks whether I want a formation specialized for offense or defense, or something balanced between the two. I know perfectly well that all this courtesy is Anyo's face and not mine, so I keep my hands cupped and tell him plainly that I want a wood attribute formation. I am no expert, but even I know an attribute matched to one's own exerts more power. He raises a hand with some pride, and 3 large wooden boxes come drifting out of the restrictions behind him. It is the first complete formation I have seen in my life. When the lids open on their sets of formation plates and formation flags, all flickering with spiritual light, my eyes give me away. All 3 are first-grade high-grade wood attribute formations. The shopkeeper reads my cultivation and correctly guesses I am after demon cores. He walks me through each set, the first balancing offense and defense with tremendous power, and so on down the line. By the end of it, I finally understand how a formation is actually used, which is worth the trip on its own. I also frown because, powerful as they are, all 3 are visibly short of what it would take to handle a second-layer demon beast. He reads that on my face and starts rubbing his hands. Each first-grade high-grade formation runs about 1,800 spirit stones, he mentions. Above them sit quasi-second-grade formations a late-stage cultivator can still drive, though as for the price, I ask what a quasi-second-grade wood attribute trapping formation costs. He holds up 3 fingers, and I go quiet. A high-grade magical artifact runs about 1,000 spirit stones, so a formation simply doubles the number and keeps a straight face. Quasi-second grade works on the same principle as my own first-grade high-grade talismans of high quality. Second-grade materials fall short of the second-grade standard through craftsmanship or some other flaw. 3,000 spirit stones is close to half a foundation establishment pill. No ordinary cultivator has that lying around, since preparing for foundation establishment bleeds a man from every direction at once. I do my hesitating out loud, grit my teeth, and nod. Fortunately, I remark, I helped wipe out demonic cult remnants back at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market and sold a fair amount off. Then I ask what the damaged one is worth. I take out the cracked formation I inherited from Gao Rai, and the shopkeeper examines it and shakes his head. A first-grade, high-grade formation, he says, but the repair cost is not small, so it is worth 1,000 spirit stones at the outside. That single palm strike of Unyo's cost me 800 spirit stones. If I had known the exchange rate, I would have asked her to break it gently. Still, formations are consumables in a way magical artifacts are not, and they come apart far more easily. I hand over 1,800 spirit stones and settle the last 200 in talismans, wearing the face of a man drained to the bone. The shopkeeper's face is squeezed out of shape with smiling, envious but not jealous. 3,000 spirit stones is not an ordinary net worth, and I plainly traded my life for it. He tells me the wooden armor spirit binding array is a formidable piece of work, hands over the instructions and the setup precautions, and assures me that repair prices at Jinbo Tower are fair. Reading the jade slip on the way home quietly appalls me. The spirit stones were well spent, but this is not a thing an average man can afford to actually operate. A magical artifact only eats the cultivator's own mana. A formation, once laid, needs spirit stones embedded in the formation plate, and every single activation swallows a pile of them. Worse, a quasi-second-grade formation is built from second-grade materials, so low-grade spirit stones pull only 70 to 80% of its power. Medium-grade spirit stones are needed for the whole of it. Converting up carries a premium of at least 150 low-grade spirit stones for one medium grade. One use therefore burns several hundred low-grade spirit stones. No wonder it is powerful. The thing runs on money. I am putting the formation away and preparing to leave, when a maid comes over with another storage pouch. It was left for Talisman Master Im by Junior Marshal Uncle Un, who has not forgotten the favor of her foundation establishment. I nod, take it, and go. On the 4th floor, a pair of eyes follows me out, and Unyo sighs faintly. The high spirits she carried the day she first entered foundation establishment look ridiculous to her now. Foundation establishment cultivators, she has decided, are nothing more than caged birds kept by whoever holds the leash. Her gaze slides across the red and gold banners of Iwa Palace hanging over the immortal city, and turns cold. Back in my own immortal cave, I open the pouch and stop breathing for a second. 8 medium-grade spirit stones and a jade slip recording her personal insights from the day she established her own foundation. Spirit stones I do not actually lack, though nobody knows that. The jade slip is the part that cannot be bought at any tower in this city. 30 years ago, the 4 of us threw everything we had into getting Unyo through her foundation establishment, and now the turn has come back around to me. That original debt was already settled long ago with a spell and a first-grade high-grade talisman, so this is something new she owes me nothing for. I sit with the pouch in my hands and admit that the favor is a large one. Over 30 years of knowing each other does not quite amount to sharing life and death, but it is rare enough that I intend to remember it. I still do not know what happened to her. What I do know is that only Foundation establishment opens the circles where such things get answered. Once inside, I will never again need someone else's name to buy a formation. Magical artifacts, cultivation spells, and formations are all in hand, and even the cultivation technique for after Foundation establishment is waiting. That leaves the Demon Core. I look out past the roofs of Cheonseon City toward the unknown mountains lying dark on the horizon, and let myself think the words. Second layer demon beast. Inside my cave, the wooden armor spirit binding array is running, and vines keep boiling up out of every surface to twist and bind and drag. I drive my green bamboo sword through them, hacking and dodging, and after a while I stop being annoyed and start being impressed. The vines are brutally tough, and while a high-grade magical artifact does cut them, it eats mana at a frightening rate. As long as the formation itself is intact, the vines never run out. Any wood attribute spell I cast inside the array costs me less and hits harder. If this is what a quasi-second grade formation does on low-grade spirit stones, I genuinely cannot picture a true second-grade formation fed on medium-grade ones. Anything trapped deep in it fights vines until its mana and its body both give out. The weaknesses are just as clear. A single attribute formation is easily countered, and fire or metal spells will strip its strength down. It has to be laid in advance, which means the demon beast must be lured onto ground I have already prepared, so it will never have the flexibility of a magical artifact in the hand. Even the ground itself matters, since a rocky waste gets its power while a jungle feeds it. 2 months I spend on this, every day, burning low-grade spirit stones to drill with it, until the thing answers me smoothly. Shim Ryol arrives one morning with his face lit up, saying there is news about the spirit-protecting grass. It is one of the main materials for a Foundation establishment pill. My chi-refining 9th layer cultivation and my years of buying are hardly a secret, so I asked him long ago to keep his ears open. A man running a restaurant hears everything first. 2 cultivators, he says, found the materials too hard to gather alone and agreed to pool what they had for a single alchemy attempt. Laying it all out, they discovered several duplicates, the spirit-protecting grass among them. That is common enough practice. Ordinary cultivators almost never assemble a full set alone, and one furnace usually yields 2 Foundation establishment pills, so men gather most of the materials, find a partner, and agree terms in advance. Everyone calls it crowdfunding the alchemy. If the luck runs bad and only one pill comes out, the arrangement decides it, and in most cases whoever contributed more materials takes the pill and compensates the other in spirit stones. 2 pills is the ordinary result, and the real variable is quality. 2 pills has never meant 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. I ask which alchemist they have hired, and I ask it seriously, because any cultivator preparing for Foundation establishment is a fat sheep wandering around with its own price tag. Shimriel understands and tells me it is Alchemist Song, an old-school second-grade alchemist with a solid reputation for craftsmanship, registered under Cheonseon City itself and belonging to neither of the 2 sects. In under 2 years, the man has opened 6 furnaces of Foundation establishment pills and every one of them produced. Immortal Master Yuke the Black Tortoise commands this city in his own right, and he has recruited no small number of retainers. Dansum Residence turns out to be a very comfortable immortal cave. Pavilion, scenery, a handsome plaque over the door, and Shimriel and I both nodded it on the way in. 2 cultivators are already waiting outside, and Shimriel introduces me as Talisman Master Im. They smile and nod, being chi-refining 9th layer men preparing for Foundation establishment the same as I am. Nobody in that position gives casual offense when no one can say who will still be climbing in 10 years. We call each other fellow Taoists for a while. They tell me they are waiting on Alchemist Song to bring himself to his best state and would rather not waste words. And I agree that their Foundation establishment is the matter that counts today. They lay out the duplicate materials, the burly one explaining. The pale scholarly one shakes his head. At their aptitude and age, he says, failure this time leaves no second chance, so the leftovers had better become spirit stones. I name the spirit-protecting grass, the green-bearded vine, and the Yeseng grass. I only actually lack the first, but keeping a spare hand has never once hurt anybody, and if something goes wrong, I would have to assemble the whole set again from nothing. 500 spirit stones covers all 3, and the trade is done in a breath. I put on an envious face, bow, and wish them both success in attaining the Tao of Foundation establishment. They smile and nod, because nobody standing outside that door wants to hear anything else. The immortal cave formation opens while we are still speaking. A plump old man with crane-white hair and a young man's complexion comes chuckling out of Dansum Residence. He tells them to bring their materials in, since he has settled himself and the hour is right. Mana radiates off him plainly. A Foundation establishment cultivator, refining pills for hire. We bow and address him as Alchemist Song, and then we watch the door take the 2 of them and close. Shim Ryol tells me to stop staring, that he believes my turn is coming. He has given up on foundation establishment for this life, and hopes only to move one level in 2 years. He does not dare aim for the 9th layer, but might still reach the 8th. I tell him I will borrow his auspicious words, and file away the fee I overheard for hiring Alchemist Song. Then I add that the 2 men who went in were carrying mana thick enough to see clearly at the perfection of the chi refining 9th layer. I have only just stepped onto the 9th, so I should chase perfection before I think about furnaces. I wave the whole thing off modestly, which is easy, because it is also true. Shimryul watches me walk away and thinks his own thoughts. Talisman master or not, foundation establishment is brutally hard for a loose cultivator of the 1st grade, and perhaps the thing to do is talk it over with Yuk Chong Chong when he gets home. The difference between this and sponsoring Unyo 30 years ago is not small. Unyo carried a high-grade spiritual root and her odds were excellent, while Im Jonggon has a low-grade spiritual root and nothing but his talisman arts. Meanwhile, Im Jangyan, freshly arrived at the chi refining 9th layer, announces to everyone who will listen that he is going into secluded cultivation for several months. What I actually do is put on a different face. The breath concealment technique I ground to the perfection stage dresses me as a nobody at the chi refining 7th layer. I walk out of Chanxian City in that skin toward the deep Unmu Mountains. 2 months later, a figure surfaces out of the damp gloom of a mountain forest, as I let the invisibility technique drop. Nobody in that city would guess that a man who has just reached the chi refining 9th layer would come out here alone. That is exactly the point. Chunxian City is thick with cultivators preparing for foundation establishment, and any of them could be watching for the right moment. Waiting until the great perfection would only add more eyes. So I announced a closed-door cultivation and left through the back. My nerve rests on a simple accounting, which is that I am short of neither formations, nor magical artifacts, nor spirit stones. The Unmu Mountains crawl with demon beasts, since the spiritual chi bleeding off the Cheonxian City spiritual vein pulls them in without stopping. There are tricks to locating a 2nd layer demon beast, and my years in the monster hunting squad were not wasted after all. I go up onto the trunk of an old tree and watch. Near the edge of the range there were still signs of human cultivators, mostly monster hunting squads moving in 3s and 5s, but I have not seen another human being in 10 days. Powerful demon beasts hold territory and defend it fiercely, so at my strength the only sane choice is one that is already weak, or one fresh out of a territorial fight. Then the insect noise starts in the distance, and I smile because a month of sitting still in the right season has finally paid. Out in the far forest, a pair of iron-backed demon mantises are mating, the male chirping in bursts. These are rare insect-type demon beasts, far more dangerous than ordinary ones, and the female runs larger and stronger than the male in every dimension. Then a full-grown tree comes down and a male iron-backed demon mantis the size of an ox flees in open panic, its remaining forelimb shearing through trunks as it goes. Its belly has gone hollow, one forelimb is missing, and so are 2 hind legs. I look at that and grin. When a female mates, hunger and instinct may make her eat the male, though it is not certain. One whose territory holds spirit fruits to replenish her often does not bother. Ordinarily, the male saves himself by cutting off his own limbs and feeding them to her. He walks away alive once the service fee has been paid to her satisfaction. This one was fat and generous, so my mantis got out. I take up my green bamboo sword with the ground around me already littered in the corpses of low-ranked demon beasts. The blood smell drifts, and the mantis wrung out and desperate to replace what it lost, turns and comes fast. I pat the spirit beast bag and the green-horned ox appears. Its demon beast instincts read the thing in the distance instantly, and its eyes go round as copper bells, full of fear and reproach. I smack it on the head and say I have poured a fortune in spirit stones into it over the years. I am not spending all that to get it killed. Through the beast control token I push my intent across again and again, and it understands perfectly well. All 4 hooves keep shaking anyway, its posture arguing that a 1st layer late-stage animal should not be luring a 2nd layer demon beast. I laugh at it because I have grown fond of the fool, and because it ate a mountain of spiritual plants to get where it is. Then I slap 2 golden light talismans of high quality onto its back to keep it alive. At the moment that matters. The valley is small. The mantis comes down out of the sky on a run of ear-splitting chirps, sees the 3 low-rank corpses laid out for it, and starts feeding without a thought. My breath concealment technique at the perfection stage buries my presence completely, and between that and the creature's injuries it never registers me at all. Then the green-horned ox lets out one shaky bellow, and the mantis's head comes up with that flat, eerie insect stare. My ox forgets every other consideration in the world and bolts, bellowing continuously the whole way, and I can honestly say I had never heard an animal make that many sounds without stopping to breathe. Behind it, the blade-like forelimb unfolds. The golden light talismans on its back flare gold, and my stomach goes tight. I slam my palm down on the hidden formation plate at my feet. The other 5 plates and the formation flags around the little valley light up green in the same instant, and a green barrier seals the whole basin shut. The mantis's aura vanishes off the world. Far away in her forest, the enormous female lifts her head as though something has brushed against her attention, then turns without any expression at all and walks back toward her cave. The transaction was concluded, and the other party no longer holds value. That is what a rare insect-type demon beast is like all the way down. Inside the wooden armor spirit-binding array, the green-horned ox is still crying like something is eating it. Vines erupt everywhere and wrap the mantis until its chirping hurts to hear. I glare at the ox and tell it to stop. Only a spirit beast raised from a calf plays bait at all, since a wild demon beast would run the moment it sensed a higher rank. The mantis hacks at the vines with its one good forelimb, spreads its wings to climb out, and slams into the barrier over and over. I cannot let it keep doing that. The formation is holding, but every impact eats energy I paid spirit stones for. I throw out 5 first-grade high-grade talismans of high quality, each flickering with firelight, and the mantis goes up in flame and screams. What matters is the wings, thin and transparent as a cicada's, which burn through and drop it out of the air. After that, it is arithmetic. Endless vines, a fireball talisman in the ribs whenever it finds an angle, and a creature that walked into my valley already half dead. Its forelimb cuts vines like grass, and it is still faster than anything I own, and none of that helps it. Its abdomen opens. Green blood goes across the stones in sheets. A second-grade demon beast is genuinely troublesome. By the time it is lying in that pool with its legs folding under it, the spirit stones in the formation are more than half gone and the fireball talismans in my hand are finished. Nothing in the fight ever threatened me directly, which is precisely what makes it frightening, because the whole thing was a contest of who ran out of resources first. 2 hours cost me more than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. A high-grade talisman of high quality sells for 70 or 80 spirit stones, and I threw away 27 of them, and that is before counting what the formation drank. The mantis sags, the vines squeeze green liquid out of it, and it stops reacting. I breathe, look carefully at every ridgeline, find no other cultivator, and stay uneasy anyway. 4 rays of green light go out as wood spirit spikes and punch into the body. Then I drive the green bamboo sword through in one pass, and take the hideous head off. That should be dead all the way through. The green-horned ox makes a pleased noise nearby, clearly relieved that its bait career is over. I am wiping the sweat off my forehead and stepping forward when something old man Heo used to say stops me flat. Insect and snake-type demon beasts have vitality that refuses to admit death. I do not step forward. I turn and look at the green-horned ox instead, and it goes wide-eyed and shakes its head and bellows its refusal at me with real feeling. I laugh, walk around it, pick up the cold half-corpse of the low-ranked demon beast, stick a golden light talisman on the thing and hurl it in. The instant the carcass lands, the headless mantis moves its forelimbs. The golden light talisman shatters, blood goes everywhere, and the ox startles badly and still puts its body between me and the corpse with its hooves scraping the dirt, ready to charge. A centipede dies without going stiff. I stand there getting my breath back with my skin crawling, because old man Heo told me that once, decades ago, and today it was the only thing between me and a very stupid death. An insect-type demon beast can be beheaded and chopped into sections and still swing at whatever comes close. Old man Heo saved my life again, and he has been dead for years. I take the lesson properly, that a few stable seasons do not entitle a man to relax. The monster hunting squad carved that caution deep enough into my bones that it surfaced on its own. Then I take off every forelimb and hind leg and cut out the demon core. The head I burn to ash with the fireball technique before clearing the field. Night comes down. The formation in the valley thins away, and my figure is gone with it, leaving nothing but scars in the dirt. I do not leave immediately, of course. I finish everything inside the array, restore my mana, then make a show of shutting the formation down and test the ground a few times to see who moves. Nobody moves. A demon core I nearly died for is not going to become somebody else's prize because I got sentimental about the walk home. I pack the formation away and vanish into the trees. 2 full months of waiting, and the harvest justified every day of it. Green Bamboo Mountain Market has emptied out in under 2 years. The people left are almost all chi refining early stage with a scattering of middle stage. A late stage cultivator is rare now, which is what happens to any market a few days from Cheonseon City. I come down out of the Unmu Mountains and stop on the back mountain to look at the place where my whole immortal path started. Founded, prosperous, and now this. The buildings are still standing, and the people in them are all different, and only the mountains and the river have not changed at all. I look at how thickly the tombstones have grown up the slope and shake my head. Fewer of us walk this road every year, and I cannot guess how long even this quiet will last. I go to old man Heo's tombstone with a pot of spirit wine. I tell him out loud that I owe him for teaching me to stay alive in the monster hunting squad, and his grandson Heo Yan for the first-grade legacy fireball talisman. I pour the wine on the ground. Beside his grave is the empty one I raised for Heo Yan back then. Over the years, the 2 great sects have cleaned out a great many robber cultivators within 1,000 miles, both the divine sword sects and the demonic cults. Judging by the state of the stone, nobody has come here since I last did, which means Heo Yeon almost certainly came to a bad end. The market was in chaos in those days, and I deliberately kept every distance I could from him, so I never visited. And now the years have gone. I stand there in the sunset without doing much thinking at all. I tell the old man I am leaving, and that next time I expect to be one of those lofty foundation establishment cultivators. It is the most relaxed I have felt in years. Then I bend to set the wine cup down, and a point of light catches in my eye and stops me cold. Ever since I took the demon core, I have kept the spirit eye running out of paranoia. At that angle, its fog-piercing and stone-penetrating sight picks out a corner of something pressed under the stone tablet, like a chip of jade glowing in a dark room. My spirit eye reads 386 of 500 toward proficiency. I back up several steps first. Then I shift Old Man Hio's tablet aside with the object manipulation technique, and my pupils contract. Under it lies a medicinal pill, and the pattern worked into the jade bottle belongs to Heonium Pavilion. I crack the stopper and purple light and aura spill out. I shut it so fast my fingers hurt, drop it into my storage pouch and come up with a wood spirit spike watching every direction. I swallow hard. There is a foundation establishment pill in that bottle. Then I line the date up against when Heo Yeon's tracks last appeared here, and the blood leaves my face. Back then a betrothed pair, one from the Jew family and one from Heonium Pavilion, were murdered and the market went into an uproar. 2 foundation establishment pills went missing off their bodies. It is still the most sensational thing that has ever happened in Green Bamboo Mountain Market. Everyone concluded the demonic cult remnants took both. With the Heonium Pavilion pattern on this bottle, 9 times out of 10 I am holding one of them. Which means Heo Yeon, that boy, may well have joined the demonic cult. My scalp prickles and keeps prickling. It was pure luck that I kept my dealings with him thin. The high-grade talisman legacy he pressed on me all those years ago finally makes sense too, and it was never gratitude. It was misdirection, a loud public gesture of repaying a debt staged to cover the fact that he had stolen a foundation establishment pill and buried it under his grandfather's stone. He had already hidden the pill when he came to me. Otherwise, why choose that exact moment, not a month earlier and not a month later, to perform a scene of settling accounts and hand over a talisman legacy? My eye twitches. I had calculated then that I wanted no relationship with him at all. He could not show his real face when the market was that sensitive, and I wanted the first-grade talisman legacy badly enough to keep quiet. Everything fits. Without the spirit eye, I could have come back to this grave 100 more times and never seen it. That boy was careful. The one thing he did not calculate was that a man would come to this grave able to see through stone. I clean every trace off the ground in front of the tombstone and leave Green Bamboo Mountain Market fast. The whole way my nerves sing to be back in Cheonseon City. There is a foundation establishment pill in my storage pouch now, and a high-quality one. Between that and the materials I have already gathered, a lucky furnace could give me 3 more, a poor one too, and a disaster still leaves 1. My own luck does not look so bad after all. Heo Yeon held enormous opportunity and did not survive to spend a day of it. That proves the old line about wealth being chased in danger and lost in danger. He and Wang Rim before him are the same lesson twice. Taking hold of an opportunity does not make it a man's own, and it is entirely possible to spend a life paving the road for somebody else. An opportunity only belongs to a man once it has been turned into strength. I stay tight as a drawn string the whole road home, because until this pill is inside me, it is simply loot walking around in a robe. My fortune does seem to have a peculiar attachment to graves. The first grave gave me a fireball talisman legacy, the last the Wang family's opportunity, and an ancient cultivation technique. This time it is a foundation establishment pill. At some point a man has to wonder whether that back mountain is his place of good fortune. And Heo Yeon's own luck was unmatched, since he came out of that slaughter holding a foundation establishment pill nobody else could find. Alive and established, he would have been another legend among loose cultivators. Tens of thousands of miles away, inside Divine Sword Sect territory in Wool State, a hoarse and utterly bored voice is talking in a windowless room. Protector Hyung remarks that Old Ghost Huang believes nobody has noticed him leaning on the cauldron to reach the Golden Core late stage. He wonders aloud what happens once the Divine Sword Sect works it out. 18 Foundation establishment cultivators stand in front of him and say nothing. He tells them they have spread the Divine Cult's method of seizing bases and grown traitors inside the sects themselves. Those men killed cultivators of the 3 major sects, or betrayed them, and the Divine Cult does not forget contributions. Behind that cold smile, a very long game is already laid out, and when the moment comes, those buried pieces will tear Wool State apart. Heo Yeon stands in that crowd. He is a Foundation establishment cultivator now, gray at the temples, expression closed, and for no reason he can name his heart stumbles, and he finds himself thinking of home. He thinks of the pill he hid, and lets out a breath, because plans never do outrun events. He had meant to go back for it quietly once his cultivation sufficed. Instead, Protector Young picked him out and carried him thousands of miles into Divine Sword Sect territory, and the years went by. When his cultivation finally sufficed, Protector Young rewarded him with the Divine Cult's secret method of foundation establishment. He could neither refuse nor delay, and by then there was no going back. So the pill stayed where it was. He tells himself that when an opportunity comes, he will retrieve it and trade it for a protective magical artifact, and he knows perfectly well he will never leave the Divine Cult alive. Not one person alive ever guessed what he actually did that day. In the confusion, he got a look at the storage pouches of the 2 dead cultivators. He decided in a heartbeat and threw both pouches out into the open crowd. Then he took the second foundation establishment pill out of its jade bottle and threw that separately. The mob tore itself apart over scattered treasure while he walked off with the other one. His cultivation was too low to hold it safely, and he was terrified of being found out, so he buried it under a grave mound on the back mountain. It never occurred to him that it would still be lying there unused. I come back into Cheonseon City at night wearing the breath concealment technique at the Supreme Realm, still dressed as a harmless chi-refining 7th layer nobody, and nothing on the road troubles me. Short of a foundation establishment cultivator deliberately turning a heavenly eye on me, nobody sees through that disguise, and among cultivators of my own rank only a special ocular technique would manage it. I do not actually breathe until the door of my immortal cave is shut behind me. The journey home wore me down worse than 2 months of lying still in the Unmu Mountains. A demon core and a high-grade foundation establishment pill in one pouch is a reason for half this city to kill me. The only main material still missing is the heavenly spiritual fruit, and unlike a demon core that is not some priceless impossibility, so it should surface inside the city. I lay everything out, count it, then put the demon core and the pill together in one place, and fix a fireball talisman to the pair of them, checking the seal twice. If it ever comes to that, I want to be able to destroy both in the first instant rather than hand a stranger my entire life. The spirit eye is the piece of this that keeps astonishing me. I acquired it by counter-killing the bandit cultivator Ju Chong and taking a bottle of spiritual liquid off his body. Then I filed it away as a lesser heavenly eye, never bought more liquid, and nearly walked past the greatest opportunity of my life. A little less cultivation in that eye, a little less penetration through stone, and I would have set the wine cup down and gone home. I am not short of spirit stones. From now on, the spirit eye gets fed like everything else. Everything is ready except the last piece, and what remains can all be bought inside these walls without me taking one more risk outside them. 2 years to reach the great perfection of chi refining, then foundation establishment. My lifespan reads 52 of 124, and my realm reads chi refining 9th layer at 19 of 100. Time goes the way it does. I settle back into cultivation and talisman work, selling into a city that never stops buying, and half a year later I take a heavenly spiritual fruit at auction. The flood of arriving loose cultivators slows to a steady stream, and Cheonseon City stops feeling improvised. Once Immortal Master Yup the Black Tortoise took his seat here, Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion formed a temporary alliance with this city as its hinge. The standoff with the Divine Sword Sect settled back into place. Privately, the 3 of them never stopped maneuvering against each other for a single day. Bandit cultivators and demonic cultivators are as thick as ever, and nobody can guess how many of them are simply the great sects wearing other clothes. None of it slows the city down. Immortal Master Yuke at the Golden Core middle stage, with a 3rd layer late stage Blackwater turtle behind him, could tilt the balance of Wool State alone, and he has proven it. 2 years later, I stand in my cave with an aura anyone would read as the great perfection of the chi refining late stage, and I look at my own attributes with my jaw tight. Chi refining 9th layer, 97 of 100. At 95, I already felt like a man standing at the top of his own realm, and the question is whether that feeling is simply what a spiritual root ceiling feels like from the inside. According to the jade slip of Foundation Establishment insights Unyo gave me, that is exactly what it is, and it comes down to the cultivator himself. If I could not literally read my own numbers, I would have believed I was at perfection, begun the process, and very probably died of it. That is the real reason loose cultivators fail at Foundation Establishment. Ordinary spiritual root aptitude convinces a man he has arrived when he is not. The thresholds run cleanly. A medium-grade spiritual root tops out at 96, a high grade at 97, an earth grade at 98. A heavenly spiritual root has no bottleneck and walks from 99 into 100. Those last 5 points nearly finished me, and without the Everspring art already at the Supreme Realm, I do not believe I would have moved past 95 at all. The Jade Slip explains why. The step from chi refining into foundation establishment is a change of kind rather than degree. Every point past 95 is the body quietly preparing for it, with the foundation establishment pill as the catalyst. Establishing a foundation without one is not impossible, only close to it. I ground out my extra 2 points on insight alone, polishing my mana until it ran purer than my grade should allow. I could keep grinding. I am also 54 years old, and the world outside these walls could turn over any month, and there is a point where waiting stops being patience and starts being cowardice dressed up as prudence. Age trades directly against lifespan, and the younger a man attempts foundation establishment, the better his odds. If I had only one pill, I would polish for another decade without complaint. As things stand, every day that pill sits in my storage pouch is a day I carry a target instead of a weapon. I will not rest until the whole lot has become strength living inside my body. Wang Rim was a Wang family prodigy, and Hyo Yon had luck the heavens themselves seemed to favor, and both of them spent their gifts paving a road for other men to walk. I would rather not make it 3. So I decide. I prepare for foundation establishment, and if the furnace is kind and gives me 3 pills, then frankly even a fool could establish a foundation with that in hand. My confidence rests partly on my own abilities, and mostly on the fact that my cultivation is polished to 97, which moves my odds by more than a little. Walking out of the seclusion pavilion into the noise of the waterfall, I find the green-horned ox floating around the pool at its leisure, chewing a lotus leaf it has just bitten off. I laugh and tell it I paid good spirit stones for those spiritual lotus flowers, and it has wrecked them in an afternoon. The animal charges out of the water in delight, its stub of a tail slapping spray everywhere. It has grown. 7 years old now, adult in another 3 by the reckoning of its kind, and a first-layer late-stage demon beast. I scratch its head while it wears its besotted expression, and remark aloud that there is a reason ordinary cultivators cannot afford spirit beasts. 7 years of this animal has cost me a fortune I have deliberately never totaled. Species differ in how they eat, of course. The Jew family's blackwater turtle needs over a century to reach adulthood, so its upkeep looks modest right up until somebody adds 100 years of it together. A greenhorned ox matures fast and eats visibly, and every spiritual plant Ju Chong ever handed me went down this creature's throat along with a great many spirit stones on top. Then it trots over to the pavilion, picks a letter up in its teeth and brings it to me. Shim Ryul left it 2 months ago, and reading it puts a slow smile on my face, because the treatment Yo once received has come around to me. He writes that they all know I am preparing for foundation establishment and want to contribute their meager strength. He cannot resist finishing with a joke reminding me to protect them once I have made it. The sun goes down while I stand there, and the shadows of one middle-aged man and one enormous ox stretch across the courtyard. I laugh out loud in a way I have not for years. Twizen Tower, a private room, the whole group of them. Li Lu lifts his glass and congratulates me in advance on foundation establishment, wishing my path to immortality stay forever green, and he has grown noticeably rounder since the last time. Shim Ryul raises his own glass and tells me not to blame him. Since the moment the others found out they refused to be left behind, Yuk Chong Chong offers the same blessing with the same smile. Even Wai Boy, who has barely spoken since the thing that happened to him, lifts his cup. Something embarrassed crosses his face as he says he was rude when young, and that without these fellow Taoists he would have died on the market streets. I raise mine and say that life runs only a few decades while the cultivation road runs long. Having a handful of true friends is more than heaven owes anybody. We drink, and the smiles around that table are the genuine kind with old ghosts in them. The cultivation world eats people, and the 5 of us have known each other since we were young and stupid. And simply being alive in the same room is more luck than most get. We are all in our 50s now. Against the 100-odd years a chi-refining cultivator gets, that is half the road walked. The talk turns outward. Xianxian City looks stable, but the country around it is a mess. The front lines stay tense, and the 3 great sects never stop working against each other. Shim Ryul points out that even with Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion allied, the alliance is held together entirely by Immortal Master Yuk. Privately, they are still tearing at each other over the secret realm. A restaurant owner hears everything, and inside the soundproofing formation of a private room he says all of it plainly, while Li Liu adds the pieces only a man inside the Jew family would know. Wai Boy, who used to talk the loudest of any of us about appearances, says nothing at all. Near the end of the meal, Yu Chong Chong looks around the table, presses her lips together, and announces that since the rest of them are too embarrassed to start, she will. Everyone laughs, and she puts a spirit stone pouch on the table. She says that preparing for foundation establishment costs resources no matter how it is done, whether crowdfunding a furnace, hunting demon beasts in the Unmu Mountains, or bidding at auction. She does not name the amount. Shim Ryul waves a hand and says her intention is his, since we were rejected together at the same gate. I had better establish my foundation and do the pair of them proud. Wide Bui nods once, heavily, and rasps that they ran into Iwa Palace disciples often enough over the years, and to do them proud. Then he sets down a pouch of his own. Li Liu looks around the table and rubs the back of his neck. Everyone knows his boy Juilbium has eaten a great many resources, he says, and 2 more fat sons have joined the household. Then he goes red to the ears and pulls a storage pouch out of his boot. Nobody at that table is a fool. No man hides his contribution in his boot unless his wife has opinions about the investment. Liu Liu's wife clearly does not rate a low-grade spiritual root against a genius like Unyo. That is his own private stash on my table. Shim Ryo laughs and says a great cultivator at the chi refining 6th layer might have outgrown that habit by now. Everyone comes apart laughing, and even Y-Boy smiles and looks a long way back. My eyes go blurry, which I blame on the wine. When the two of us first walked toward the cultivation world, Li Lu hid the money his family gave him in his shoes and socks, and he never once broke the habit. He did it again the year I gave up and packed to go back to the mortal world. The only difference after all these decades is that what comes out of the boot is a storage pouch instead of a knot of rag. His old face is scarlet under the teasing. He says he is waiting for Big Brother Im to reach Foundation Establishment so he can show off properly and let his boy Ju Ilbeam know he has an uncle there. Looking at the pouches lying on the table, amounts that mean almost nothing to a man with my storage pouch, I find them impossibly heavy in my hands. I start to speak and the smile goes off my face, and the whole room tilts towards something none of us want, and then everyone looks at everyone else and roars with laughter instead. One more glass, and the next one we drink together will be to celebrate my Foundation Establishment. I put it back in one swallow. That wine did not taste like any wine I have drunk in 54 years, and I expect it is the only cup I will never be able to forget. Every one of them knows exactly what the odds are for a low-grade spiritual root, and every one of them came anyway, without ever needing to discuss it. Night and my own immortal cave, and the pouches laid out one at a time. Shim Ryol and Yuk Chong Chong together put in 300 spirit stones, less than they gave Unyo 30 years ago. They have their own cultivation and their own children now, so 300 means savings. Y-Boy gave over 100. Li Yu gave the least, 89. What sits behind those three portions is worth more than the stones will ever be. I wonder whether it has occurred to any of them that they could lose all of it. I put every pouch away without intending to spend a stone, since they are memories now rather than currency. As a first-grade talisman master, I could repay it all even if my Foundation Establishment failed. If I denied the debt outright, not one of them could force me to pay. That is not what any of this is. 30 years is 30 years. Time to prepare then, and it would be best to save the announcement and hand them all a surprise at the end. 3 great forces sit in Cheonsean City, and only those 3 keep second-grade alchemists. And sect forces are wound around each other like roots. Gui Samdo is currently famous on the bounty list, and what he did back then is a lesson written in other people's blood. Whichever alchemist I hire, the moment I walk in and fail to walk out for half a day, everyone outside knows a Foundation Establishment pill is being refined. They also know who paid for it. The odds of the news reaching the wrong ears may be small. I am not in a position to gamble on small. So, to be safe, I should pay another call on Unyo. She vouched for me at Jinbo Tower and gave me medium-grade spirit stones for nothing, which makes her character a known quantity. As a Golden Core Immortal Master's personal disciple, she has no use for anything I own. Favors only stay favors while they keep moving. Either she owes me or I owe her, and keeping that line open matters, because a loose cultivator with a connection to a well-backed disciple has somewhere to stand when the upper echelons start shifting. Nobody can say when the 3 great sects will go at each other again. The next day I climb up to Unyo's immortal cave and lay out what I have come for. She asks whether the materials for the Foundation Establishment pill are all prepared. When I tell her the Demon Beast core is already sitting in my storage pouch, a flicker of surprise crosses her eyes. She knows better than anyone what hunting a second-layer Demon Beast costs, because she wore herself down to the bone doing it once. Now the unremarkable old man in front of her has managed the same thing, and nobody can say when. She does not pry. She only nods, and her face is the color of paper. She admits she had expected me to ask her to help hunt the Demon Beast down. I give her an awkward smile, because I did think about it, and if I could not finish the job alone, only a fool would let a favor rot unused. Asking her to go out and kill the thing by herself never crossed my mind, since she is a Foundation Establishment cultivator and not my maid. In the cultivation world, a chi refining cultivator often spends months locating a demon beast, then invites a Foundation Establishment cultivator to split the kill. That happens when the two of them already have some rapport. I tell her that a loose cultivator like me is an easy target, and that I would rather trouble her with the alchemy than hand it to a stranger. Along with the materials and the refining fee, I give back the medium-grade spirit stones left over from last time. That earns me a raised eyebrow, and then something rarer, a dry little jab about my courage, since a complete set of Foundation Establishment materials is valuable even to a Foundation Establishment cultivator. I answer that her character puts me at ease. With an ordinary Foundation Establishment cultivator I would worry, but I cannot picture a personal disciple of a Golden Core Elder coveting my scraps. Plenty of cultivators lack a top-tier magical artifact. A disciple of a Golden Core Immortal Master is not one of them. Back at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, the spoils I took off Gal Rai and those divine cult remnants came close to the price of a Foundation establishment pill. She looked straight through all of it with nothing in her eyes but the merit. What I lack, she disdains, and what she lacks is no use to me at all. That is as clean an arrangement as this world allows. She agrees to the work with the same flat calm as always. Then I get a proper look at how bloodless she is, and my brows pull together. I tell her the alchemy can be postponed if the timing is bad for her, since a few more months mean nothing to a man who already threw away 20 years. She waves it off as a minor injury, carelessness while clearing out divine cult remnants, and motions for me to come back in 2 days so we can call on an alchemist together. At the same time, she pushes the Foundation establishment materials back across to me, meaning for me to hold them until then. I do not take them. I cup my hands, tell her I will come find her in 2 days, and leave the whole bundle sitting there. Doubt a person or use a person, never both. The choice is already made, and clutching the bag now would only make me look small. Ever since my cultivation base broke into the chi refining ninth layer, my immortal cave has had a steady trickle of visitors. They all want the same two things: a joint demon beast hunt or a pooled batch of alchemy. Some of them are sincere. Most of them are measuring me. My materials are already gathered, and my spiritual root is low grade, so refining alongside anyone else was never a real option. Walking down from her cave, I finally let my shoulders drop, because I have been careful to the point of paranoia, and I cannot name a single accident I have not already accounted for. Inside the immortal cave, Unyo watches Im Jangan's back until it is gone, her expression blank, and after a long while she lets out a faint sigh. A low-grade spiritual root, and a furnace that has to be kind. If 2 or 3 Foundation establishment pills come out of it, the breakthrough might not be out of reach after all. She approves of his gamble on the demon beast core, because a loose cultivator with poor aptitude, who will not fight for his own chance, deserves to die at chi refining. Before this, she had no faith in his odds. Now she has a little. The Everspring art delays aging and stores strength for one late burst. Its mana gentle and deep. It is unimpressive in the early stages and respectable in the late ones, and there is his age to weigh in as well. If the luck holds, and 3 pills leave the furnace, she puts him at 70 to 80%. Her thought breaks off as heat floods her face. Her throat works, and a thread of crimson slides from her lips, and where the droplets strike the floor, they freeze into patches of frost that breathe cold into the room. The complete version of the Gaisu divine art is overbearing beyond reason, its yin-cold energy driving straight into her lungs and organs. Without a treasure on her, she would be crippled instead of merely bleeding. Exhaustion sits heavy in her brows. A cold light rises in her eyes as she thinks of Iwa Palace and of the Hyonium divine cult. She is certain now that even the Gaisu divine art the divine cult handed her was never the complete version. They underestimate what the cultivation world can produce. Perhaps she does not have the aptitude, but Iwa Palace has spent hundreds of years on the problem and already holds a method to finish the art. For that she can thank her good master, Old Ghost Wang. Both of them are so eager to see her cultivation base climb. She sneers at the empty room and promises she will not disappoint them. Coming out of Unyo's cave, I catch myself smiling as I pass the Dansim residence. No shared furnace this time, and no accidents left to imagine. The Huang father and son come out of the Dansim residence just as I pass. Huang Sohei apologizes for the worry he has caused. Huang Unshan tells him to shut his mouth. He demands to know why, out of everything in the world, his son chose to study the art of plucking yin to replenish yang, as if such a thing were easy. Now an old man has to lower his face and scheme through half the city just to buy the boy a Foundation establishment. If Huang Sohei had shown a fraction of effort, he would have broken through years ago, and none of this would be happening. Huang Unshan glares at his son, and only the fact that he has no other promising heir keeps him from doing worse. Huang Sohei keeps his head down. Something went wrong recently in his cultivation of that art. His mana has turned chaotic, and now he needs 1 or 2 extra Foundation establishment pills to fix it. His father tells him the situation is tight, that he will look elsewhere for the pills, and that if the boy fails this time, he goes straight back to the sect. Huang Sohei's face changes at once, because being sent back means being written off. He insists his mana already outstrips cultivators of his own rank, and that once he establishes his foundation, his strength will leave ordinary Foundation establishment cultivators far behind. Huang Unshan swallows the rest of his anger, because the boy is still his son, and the point is not wrong. The pill has gotten harder to come by, but if it works, his lineage will hold 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. He will be able to lift his head in front of the old ancestor at last. 2 months later, I bathe, burn incense, put on a brand new Dharma robe, and pick an auspicious hour before I set out for Anyo's cultivation grounds. The formation opens slowly as I arrive. She is dressed in white martial attire today, and her color has come back, so the injury must have healed. Something odd flickers through her eyes when she looks me over, and I know exactly what it is about. So I cup my hands with a bit of embarrassment and admit I am only fishing for a little good luck. Plenty of cultivators do the same before anything that matters. She tells me to come along, without a trace of scorn for the ritual. The strange look was not about the robe at all. Jangan, standing there with his spirits high, dragged up a familiar picture from a dozen years back. That was when the two of them first entered the cultivation world, when he was full of vigor and her own eyes were full of starlight inside that carriage. She had believed becoming an immortal meant roaming the world like a bird, loosed from every restraint. It never occurred to her that Foundation establishment would only trade her a larger birdcage. The vigor in his brows today is very close to the vigor he carried back then, and it makes her sigh inwardly. After the breakthrough, he will probably learn what she learned, that the world simply gets wider, and a Foundation establishment cultivator is still an ant in it. She shakes it off, her face turning cold and severe again, and leads me all the way down to the foot of the city. This, she says, is the temporary seclusion chamber rental district of Xi'an City, where the spiritual chi runs dense enough to carry a breakthrough to Foundation establishment. I am to pick a chamber now, and the moment the pills come out in 3 days, I go straight into seclusion. She is guarding against accidents, timing it so the pills never spend an hour where anyone could take an interest in them. I understand the kindness well enough to cup my hands and thank her for it. Then she turns and flies off toward the mountain range, and I stand there watching with something close to hunger. Foundation establishment cultivators fly through the sky. I intend to be one of them. I go looking for the steward to rent an immortal cave, though I hardly need directions, because there is nobody in Xi'an City who does not know this district. In the span of a few short years, no one can count how many Foundation establishment cultivators have walked out of these chambers, or how many more have walked out with nothing. For a loose cultivator, simply being in a position to attempt Foundation establishment already makes one a dragon among men, and holding an actual pill while renting a chamber here is rarer than phoenix feathers. Calling the breakthrough 1,000 troops crossing a single log bridge is not an exaggeration in the slightest. Back at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, how many Foundation establishment cultivators were there in total? Xi'an City's spiritual chi is thick enough that they come out of the ground here in an endless stream. A small pond and a great lake cannot be compared. 3 days later, nobody has come out. I hold a jade token for a chamber I do not want, waiting on the numbers I do. It never occurred to me that not one cultivator would emerge in 3 days, or that so many people would be attempting the breakthrough at the same time. So those few immortal caves are not fated to be mine. The token in my hand reads 19, and I have been holding out for 9, 6, 5, or 3, since in the cultivation world every one of those carries meaning. 9 stands for nobility and long life, 6 for everything running smooth, 5 for the balance of yin and yang, and 3 for completeness and harmony. 19 it is then, and I only ask that things go smoothly. 54 years old, and I am still shopping for lucky numbers like a man buying charms at a temple gate. I wait calmly on the outside, but my heart refuses to settle, and it is not because my mindset is weak. It is because Foundation establishment matters more to me than anything else ever has. I may have a cheat, but the cheat never handed me eternal youth, and once I pass 60, my blood and chi will thin out, and cultivation will crawl. 54 still leaves room, and even a failure would not frighten me, since with my abilities I could assemble another attempt. The trouble is that a second attempt would have to be made in hiding, with the whole market watching me for a slip. Around noon, a familiar figure finally comes down onto the peak, dressed in white, and my eyes light up so plainly that I cannot hide the joy in my brows. It is the first time in my life I have found Anyo beautiful. I am obviously not talking about her face. Her voice arrives by sound transmission the moment she lands, telling me 2 Foundation establishment pills came out and one of them is high grade, and excitement goes through me like a struck bell. A high-grade pill is worth close to 10,000 spirit stones and lifts the odds of a breakthrough by roughly 30%, against 20 for an ordinary one. That is far past anything I let myself expect, and I thank her with my hands cupped and my composure barely holding. Plenty of people see the exchange and look openly envious, since almost everyone in this district is either here to establish a foundation or waiting on someone who is. Unyo, of all people, wishes me an evergreen path to the Tao, which from a woman made of ice is close to a speech. I am too busy staring at the jade bottle in her hand to appreciate it properly. She's been careful in a way I would not have thought of, putting both pills into a single bottle so that nobody watching can guess there are 2. Then the cultivators around us call out their wishes for my success all at once, which startles me badly until I see the goodwill on their faces and let myself smile. It is not nerves, it is experience. An opportunity is never truly one's own until it has been converted into strength, and I have Gui Samdo in my memory to prove it. These 3 days, I also heard about some unlucky cultivator whose Foundation establishment pill was forcibly traded away by a great sectsman leaning on his sect's name. Unyo hands over one more thing, a second-grade spirit-condensing incense that calms the mind and gathers the spirit. I cup my hands and tell her that Jangan will keep this day's kindness carved into his heart. The seclusion chamber door grinds shut behind me. Standing in the dim, I come back to myself, and the knot in my chest finally loosens. Everything went smoothly, start to finish, with nothing going wrong anywhere. Once this door is closed, not even a golden core cultivator can shake it easily. The chambers at the foot of the mountain are built into the mountain and count as part of the city's defenses. I worried about how many pills would come out. I worried about accidents at every step of the road. Instead, it was calm water the whole way, which honestly makes me wonder whether I am the protagonist of anything at all. Now I settle my state and get ready to break through. I take the pills out of my storage pouch and open both jade bottles, and 3 Foundation Establishment pills float up, 2 of them carrying a visibly denser spiritual light. 3 pills, 2 of them high grade, and no reason left in the world for this to fail. I sit cross-legged, steady my breathing, and light the first grade spirit condensing incense I prepared myself. The second grade incense Unyo gave me I am saving for the moment of the breakthrough. Outside, Unyo watches the last of that figure disappear and feels something move in her, cold eyes and all. Meeting an old friend again after more than a dozen years, she never expected Jangan to climb this far. It is outside everything she predicted. Then 2 figures step onto the peak behind her, and the younger one greets her as Senior Yun. Huang Unchun laughs and remarks that junior sister Yun moves quickly indeed, and that he was only making conversation earlier. Since she has no wish to trade away the high-grade Foundation Establishment pill, let it be forgotten, because how could a senior brother ever force her? Huang Sohei cups his hands respectfully behind him. Unyo lets her disdain show and answers with a sneer. The tale of a loose cultivator having his Foundation Establishment pill forcibly traded is already circulating through every corner of the district. If the man were not part of her master's clan, she says, he would not be qualified to speak to her at all. In front of outsiders, she keeps the cold arrogance on like a robe, the perfect golden core immortal master's disciple with no patience for privileged sons. Inwardly, she wants nothing more than to gather more enemies for Iwa Palace and the Huang family. The 2 of them stare at each other until Huang Unshan feels the chill coming off her and decides to fold. He smiles and says Huang Sohei still has a seclusion to enter, so they will take their leave. He turns away with a cold light in his eyes, thinking that she can be as wild and as arrogant as she likes for now. When the old ancestor finally shows his true face, they will see how much of that arrogance survives. Behind him, Huang Sohei keeps his expression respectful until his back is turned, and then the rage rises straight into his brows as he raises the matter of the high-grade pill again. His father tells him to shut his mouth, and asks by sound transmission whether 2 Foundation Establishment pills are somehow not enough for a high-grade spiritual root. Huang Sohei's face goes sour, and his resentment settles on whoever took the high-grade pill that should have been his. If he learns the name after his breakthrough, the matter will not end there. Inside his own immortal cave, Huang Sohei takes out 4 jade tokens in a temper, and the numbers on them are 9, 6, 5, and 3. He reserved the 4 most auspicious chambers in the district, 2 full months before entering seclusion. That is what status buys. 1 man in 1 room and 4 rooms standing empty around him. Half a month later, I sink into meditation and set my essence, my chi, and my spirit in order, and the surging mana of the Everspring art gathers itself into my core. Foundation Establishment at 54 on the Everspring art, with 3 Foundation Establishment pills in hand, and I put the odds of success at 95%. When I open my eyes, I am perfectly calm. I flick a finger and the 2nd grade spirit condensing incense catches, and then a high grade Foundation Establishment pill goes down my throat. I gather my mind, turn it back to the source, and close my eyes on the assault. The first trial is the physical body. A flaw in the body, thin vitality, or too many years on the bones will all drag at a breakthrough. I am fortunate that I did not spend these decades trading blows with demon beasts. With the Everspring art feeding me all that time, I carry almost no internal injury. This is the moment the art quietly earns its keep. Sitting cross-legged on the jade prayer mat, I let the medicine work while my body pulls in the heaven and earth spiritual chi without restraint. The mana turns into a flood with no end to it, scouring through everything inside me, and my skin burns red as my meridians take the beating. The second trial is the mana. My cultivation was built 1 plain step at a time. My foundation is unusually solid, and the Everspring art is famous for exactly that emphasis on basics. If a chi refining cultivator's mana is a gas, then a Foundation Establishment cultivator's mana is a liquid, and that qualitative change is the whole of the breakthrough. Anyone who has choked down too many medicinal pills along the way ends up with muddied mana. My Everspring art at the Supreme Realm is already known for purity, so the pills I swallowed to climb faster are not going to bury me here. I set my teeth. Each surge washes through me the way waves wash sand, driving impurities up until they bead on my skin, and the circulating mana starts to show the first hint of thickening. The third trial is the divine sense. Both the violence and the change of state need divine sense for the last step, the control and the compression that finish the transformation. Mine is ordinary at best, but with mana this pure and a high-grade pill behind it, the stuff in my body handles far more easily than it should. The mist in my core spins faster and packs tighter. Physical body and mana and divine sense folding together as essence. Chi and spirit into one final change. Divine sense clamps down and compresses. The mana has stamina to spare. The physical body holds without a single blockage, and then the change begins in earnest. My brows knit as the panel moves, the chi refining 9th layer experience jumping to 98 out of 100 the instant the mana turns. I lose all sense of time before I feel it, the first drop of pure liquid mana forming in my core. Once the first one exists, the second and the third begin to condense behind it. Outside the immortal cave, the heaven and earth spiritual chi surges, though this is Cheonseon City, where the formation keeps pouring dense spiritual chi in without pause. Somebody out there calls out that another one is attempting foundation establishment. The city could carry 100 breakthroughs at once and never notice. All that happens is a small ripple in the nearby spiritual chi. Inside, I am grinding my teeth and holding on, because the momentum is flagging. The panel sits at 99 out of 100 and will not move. Stuck on the last step, I hold without panic and swallow the second foundation establishment pill. And right there I finally understand why spiritual roots are sorted into grades at all. The grade of the root and the speed of one's cultivation decide how efficiently mana converts during the change of state. With a high-grade root, I would already be through. With a low-grade one, the conversion in my body has visibly slowed and refuses to finish. Unyo's Jade Slip said as much, that both quality and speed of conversion differ by root grade and again by cultivation technique. Those differences nobody notices in daily practice turn into shackles at the one moment that matters. Even so, the Everspring art is carrying me. It is nothing special early, and its purity is excellent late, and at the Supreme Realm it has raised my odds outright. A few days later, the spiritual chi vortex over my immortal cave thins away, and a wave of Foundation Establishment Realm spiritual pressure rolls out behind it. The panel reads Foundation Establishment Early Stage, 2 out of 100, 30 years of bitter cultivation, and I am finally standing here. My laughter fills the chamber and I let it run out into a long howl to get the weight off my chest. There was nothing legendary about the road. None of the twists and reversals the geniuses of the cultivation world get to brag about. I simply accumulated until the thing happened on its own. Because 2 of the pills were high grade, the leftover mana pushes my cultivation a little further past the line. The current version of me is frighteningly strong. Feeling the changes running through my body under all that excitement, I finally own a measure of self-preservation in a cultivation world that has never once been safe. A Foundation Establishment cultivator does not end up as cannon fodder. I am no longer an ant of the chi refining stage, but a power of the Foundation Establishment realm. Back in a small place like the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, I would now rate the title of Foundation Establishment Old Ancestor. Then I push the secret room open and a cold wind hits me, and the sight of Cheonseon City freezes my face. Snow is falling everywhere out there, and the whole city lies under a coat of silver frost. The chi-refining late-stage deacon in charge of the district comes forward with an envious smile and offers a smooth congratulation on my Foundation establishment, wishing my immortal path stay evergreen. I ask him how long I was inside. I went in with the autumn wind rattling through the district, and I have come out into a world of wind and snow. Standing there gawking at it, I get my first taste of a day in the cave being 1,000 years in the world. He tells me it has been 2 months and 27 days since I entered seclusion. Nearly 3 months gone in what felt like an afternoon. So this is what a cultivator is. Chi refining still sat inside the ordinary range. A man merely stronger than a mortal. Past Foundation establishment, the world has changed shape, and the plainest seclusion has just shown me the gap between immortal and mortal. The shortest seclusion of a Foundation establishment cultivator runs for months, and the longest runs for years. I toss the deacon 2 spirit stones and he cups his hands with a fawning smile and thanks me for the bounty. He was the first person to congratulate me, so he has earned it. Then I put wind under my feet and head straight for Unyo's immortal cave, because she carried a great deal of this. She refined the pills, she stood as my guarantor when I bought the formation, and she handed me insights about Foundation establishment that no amount of spirit stones could have bought. Behind me, the loiterers crowd in to ask what happened, and the answers come back with envy and longing and the usual sour undertone. 54 years old and a first-grade high-grade talisman master, so of course he made it. And how would ordinary loose cultivators like them ever come by an opportunity like that? A cluster of them talk it around among themselves. Establishing a foundation at 54 is nothing rare after all, since rumor says immortal master Yuke the Black Tortoise was already in his 70s when he managed it. Schweisen Tower and the wind and snow are still howling outside while the private room fills with noise. Shim Ryol, Li Liu, Wee Boy and Yuk Chung Chung all congratulate me with their faces lit up. When the news first reached them, they refused to believe it, because it was simply too sudden. Unyo's breakthrough had shocked them too, but she was already at the last step, and it made sense. I had still been in the middle of preparing, and then I was through. There is a thin, invisible distance in their smiles at first, the natural gap that opens when status shifts, and it fades once I keep talking and joking the way I always have. I raise my cup and tell them that foundation establishment is too important a thing to speak about in advance, which is why I said nothing to anyone. Jangan stands here today because of the support they gave me. Then I drain the cup without a pause. They drink to me with their faces flushed. They had backed me, and in their hearts none of them had believed it. Every one of us failed the same selection 20 years ago, and a low-grade spiritual route reaching foundation establishment is close to impossible. So their support was friendship and nothing more calculating than that. That is exactly why I am grateful. Since the breakthrough, I went first to Unyo's immortal cave to thank her, then bought a few things on the road, and came here to tell the only people who would care. Call it a small celebration. Li Liu's face glows and his words come out tangled, because I have attained the Tao of foundation establishment and have not changed toward any of them at all. The talk goes around the table, everyone saying they can hold their heads up now, that this settles something for all of us who failed that selection. After 3 rounds of wine, I stand and raise my cup again, solemnly this time, and none of them dare stay seated. Then I bring out what I bought. 2 bottles of medicinal pills land on the table, and Shimriel's and Yuk Chongchong's pupils shrink. Why Boy, being an alchemist, blurts out what they are: clear spirit powder and high-grade golden marrow pills. Clear spirit powder cleanses the marrow and the tendons and strengthens the foundation while cultivating the origin. Shimriol's eyes go red on the spot, because nobody knows better than him what that spirit medicine is worth to a man in his condition. He has been stalled at the chi-refining 7th layer for years, purely from the after effects of a rank-breaking pill he took long ago. This bottle will not undo all of it, but it will let him rebuild his foundation and cultivate his origin, which means his cultivation can move again. He gave up on foundation establishment a long time ago. The 8th or the 9th layer, though, is still standing open. The high-grade golden marrow pill goes to Yuk Chongchong. Then I set out another jade bottle and tell Y-Boy it is his. His eyes redden instantly, because it is an advanced healing medicine for the meridians, which in plain speech means it is for his legs. He looks up at me, and whatever he remembers from when we were young lands on him all at once. He lowers his head with shame in his face and gets out my name in a hoarse voice before the rest of it dies in his throat. I smile and nod and let him keep the words. Then I turn to Li Lu and remind him that he has been stuck at the chi-refining 6th layer for a very long while. In a cultivation world this changeable, there are days when strength is simply everything. A bottle of rank-breaking pills goes across the table, and everyone smiles. His gift is worth the least of the 4, and he does not look shortchanged for a second. The rest of the evening I walk them through the breakthrough, the dangers and the details. Though I keep a few things back, mostly I talk about how hard the demon beast hunt was, and how cultivators with poor aptitude like us should think about the road to foundation establishment. Then I mention that I only needed 2 of my pills, and the whole table goes off at once. They demand to know whether a foundation establishment pill is still sitting in my storage pouch. None of them could use it, and it shocks them anyway, because a loose cultivator spends an entire life fighting for exactly that one sliver of opportunity. I tell them plainly that I still have one, and I watch them come back to themselves and trade bitter smiles around the table. If any of them stood at the peak of the chi-refining late stage, I would sell it to them tonight and think nothing of it. They all know better. Foundation establishment is not the problem, since even the chi-refining 9th layer is a long way past where any of them can see. So the heads shake, and mine shakes with them. Then I look at Li Lu and say that the Zhu family's Tao of beast taming is famous, and that my green-horned ox seems short of a certain heat. He might ask them about it when he goes home. That single sentence turns Li Lu's face scarlet. He lifts his cup, drains it, and swears the matter is his to handle. Everyone at the table understands what I have actually said, that the foundation establishment pill in my hand is going to the Zhu family. Sending Li Lu to carry the offer hands him the merit for it. That is the real gift, and the smiles say so. He married into that household as a live-in son-in-law, and when he backed me last time he did it out of his own private savings, which every person here knows. A merit of this size will change how the family and the clan look at him, and nothing more needs saying about it. The room drinks to my eternal path of immortality. I thought the trade through carefully before I ever raised it. Fresh out of a breakthrough, I lack nothing else, and my strength will not climb much in the near term either way. The green-horned ox, on the other hand, is at the critical stretch of its growth, and if it can push into the 2nd layer, my strength goes up by considerably more than a little. Given what the world outside looks like, nobody can say when the 3 major sects will finally turn on one another. Getting Li Lu his merit out of the same deal makes it the best of both roads. Before we break up, I hand every one of them a golden light talisman, and their gratitude is worth more than the talismans are. The wind and snow keep howling over Chanxian City. Back in my own immortal cave, I can feel exactly how thin the spiritual chi is in here, which I never noticed until I had stood inside Unyo's cave and felt the difference. The two are not on the same level. So I will cultivate the ancient cultivation technique first and change caves afterward. I have not settled on a cultivation technique since the breakthrough. And with everything else finished, that comes next. My panel says my lifespan is 54 out of 236, and my realm is foundation establishment early stage at 2 out of 100. My span past the breakthrough has jumped clean over 230 years. That is the Everspring art paying out, and it will keep paying as my cultivation rises. They say foundation establishment cultivators on wood attribute techniques outlive everyone, with a few of them reaching nearly 300 before the end. Next comes the ancient cultivation technique and the natal spiritual plant it demands, which I bought in the market a while back. The ginseng would be a fabled treasure in the mortal world, and is merely passable here, 3,500 years old and carrying just enough spiritual chi to meet the requirement. Nascent soul cultivators would kill each other over a genuine 3,000-year spiritual plant of the cultivation world. So I shake my head and settle for second best, since this is the finest thing my purse could reach. Then I take the withered leaf out and look my opportunity from the ancient ruins over one more time. All these preparations, and nothing left to do but begin. Sitting cross-legged on the prayer mat, I pour a bottle of spiritual liquid over the ginseng where it rests on the leaf with the cultivation technique imprinted into it. The ginseng floods with new vitality at once, which tells me plenty. A mortal thing reacting that violently to a few drops of cultivation world spiritual liquid is exactly the problem, and there is nothing to be done about it. I pinch my fingers and squeeze a drop of essence blood out from between my brows, and at the critical moment my pupils shrink. Where the blood lands, the ginseng begins weathering away in front of my eyes. It is not dying, it is being eaten, and the thing eating it is the withered leaf underneath. The spiritual liquid I poured a moment ago soaked into that leaf and woke something in it. Then my essence blood touches the leaf. A fine connection snaps into place, and my expression sets. My natal spiritual plant is gone, and the leaf appears to satisfy every condition in its place. Anything sitting inside an ancient cultivator's immortal cave has existed for several thousand years at the least, perhaps 10,000, which puts it well past the bar. With a true spiritual plant of the cultivation world in hand, I would never have reached for a mortal root anyway. While I am still hesitating, the leaf answers under the refinement method and flares with a faint green light, and the choice is made for me. A treasure out of an ancient ruin beats a market vegetable no matter how the accounting runs. I begin circulating the technique, cultivating the eternal evergreen artworks, and the mana moving through me now carries a distinct sense of living things. My chi pathways run long and patient, and as the natal spiritual plant feeds strength back, the vitality in my body brims over. My brows, on the other hand, sag with mental exhaustion, and there are faint dark rings under my eyes, while inside my core the plant coils around lazily, fat and satisfied. The panel says the eternal evergreen art is entered at 1 out of 100. It also says my lifespan is 54 out of 205. I have no words for what I feel looking at that second line. Self-healing, wound recovery, immunity to every poison, restorative power far past anything ordinary, and this self-healing body already reads stronger than the records promised. Refining the natal spiritual plant simply charged me for it. The withered leaf now floats inside an ancient emerald halo, with one thin white root grown from its base and driven down into my core. The price of that root was 31 years of my life. When the thing came back to life, it pushed a single line of information into my mind, and the name it gave was the withered leaf of the Hyanshan Undying Immortal Vine. In the cultivation world, the title Hyanshan belongs only to objects born alongside the creation of a world, treasures the legends say no one below a true immortal can hold. That such a thing was lying in an ancient cultivator's secret realm rattles me, and worse, it means Hyonium Pavilion and Iwa Palace walked out of there with things of their own. A refined natal spiritual plant has to be nourished with spiritual liquid over a long stretch of years, and the stronger it grows, the more it gives back to the host. My mood is a knot. The gamble was right, and there may genuinely be a road to becoming an immortal at the end of it. At the same time, the difficulty of raising this plant has gone up without any ceiling I can see. All I can do is talk myself around. 31 years is a brutal fee, and the goods are worth it. Even at the initial refinement, a foundation establishment cultivator with this self-healing body can regrow a severed limb, which makes my life force absurdly stubborn. Ordinary wounds close on their own almost as fast as they open, and in a fight both my injuries and my mana come back at a speed nobody will expect. My physique now outclasses a greenhorned ox, since an ox that loses a hoof has no way to grow another one, and I do. The leaf, however, is expensive to keep breathing. It is my natal spiritual plant now, refined and bound, our glory and our ruin the same thing, our lives braided together through the dual cultivation of essence and spirit. Through that binding, I can feel the faint pulse of life coming off it, and what it wants is spiritual liquid by the crate. If a single withered leaf feeds back this much, I cannot imagine what the whole vine would do if it ever lived again. Spiritual liquid only forms in the spring eyes of advanced spiritual veins. And in all of Wool State, that means the 3 major sects in Cheonseon City, nobody else. A bottle costs 100 spirit stones and the high-quality stuff runs to 1,000. Since the big forces hold the taps, my only real option is to earn. Before Foundation Establishment, I drew talismans every day to buy cultivation resources, and after Foundation Establishment, I get to do the same thing at a larger scale to feed a plant. At least the breakthrough was not wasted. My strength, for once, is not in question. The invitations start arriving almost immediately. A Foundation Establishment cultivator counts as the backbone of any force, and with Wool State this unsettled, the 3 major sects all need quality cannon fodder. Several Foundation Establishment families want me as an enshrined protector living on an old ancestor's resources. So this is what strength buys. The 3 major sects I refuse outright, not because the treatment is poor, but because it is far too good, and nobody hands out treatment like that for free. Getting in is simple, and getting out is not. And if the war turns worse, I would rather my name never appear on the Divine Sword Sect's bounty list. The Foundation Establishment families vary in strength, and not one of them can offer better cultivation resources than what I already have. Several make a point of mentioning beautiful young women in the clan willing to serve as concubines. I shake my head at the pile. With Wool State in this condition and a starving natal spiritual plant coiled in my core, I have no appetite for comfort of any kind. What I want is spirit stones, not some enchanting concubine eating into my liquid budget. Only the 3 major sects in Cheonseon City can hand over a legacy for second-grade talismans, and the families simply lack the heritage for it. So my thinking leans toward the city. The first visitor to arrive, though, is not the Jew family, it is Anyo. Her arrival throws me, and my first thought is that she means to recruit me into Iwa Palace. The great sects run on internal factions, and someone of her standing pulling Foundation Establishment cultivators into her own would surprise nobody. Then she steps inside my immortal cave and tells me that our matter has been exposed, and my face goes blank. I ask her what matter, because to the best of my knowledge, there has never been a matter between us of any kind. She catches her own phrasing, and being decisive by nature, she shakes it off and lays out the actual incident, which concerns the Foundation Establishment pill. When she refined it for me, Huang Unchan and his son happened to notice, and they leaned on her to learn who the buyer was, plainly with designs on that high-quality pill. So I was not overthinking things after all. Someone really was reaching for it. She nods and says nothing more, and I turn it over and find a hole in it. I heard that Huang So-hei reached Foundation Establishment shortly after I did, so whatever designs the pair had should be dead now. A man fresh off his own breakthrough ought to be celebrating rather than nursing a grudge. A rare flicker of helplessness crosses her cold face. It would be dead, she says, if it were a normal Foundation establishment. Iwa Palace holds a secret technique called the Foundation seizing method, and after Huang So-hei failed with the pill in his stomach, he used it to force his way through. The 2 roads do not lead to the same place. A cultivator who establishes his foundation through the Foundation seizing method holds a lifespan of roughly 150 years with his potential gutted. Short of a massive opportunity, he will never see core formation in this life. I sit with that in silence. Every step of the way I prepared my own materials and commissioned her precisely so nobody would have a reason to look at me. The caution itself is what put a target on my back. Weakness really is the original sin around here. I ask whether Huang So-hei would dare move inside Cheonseon City at all, and whether that father and son can plant themselves here forever. Anyo says the answer is not so simple, because there is a loose cultivator with worse luck than mine. Of the 2 Foundation Establishment pills Huang So-hei held, he forced a low-quality one onto that man in a trade, and the man went and established his foundation with it. She sneers when she says it, openly pleased. The trade robbed him and the robbery made him, which should have been the end of a good story. Instead, because Huang So-hei failed to break through the honest way, the person he hates most in the world is that loose cultivator. His reasoning is that his own luck was carried off in the exchange. Luck is a vague thing and it is not nothing, and a great many cultivators believe in it absolutely. She tells me to stay careful for a while, to avoid leaving the city without cause, and more importantly, to make a decision soon. Her eyes drift to the stack of invitations on the side table while she says it, which spares her having to spell anything out. I tell her that if I have to choose, Cheonseon City looks good, since I was already leaning that way and this trouble has made up the rest of my mind. Then she adds that I need not worry too much, because the front line is tense and Huang So-hei's potential has collapsed since he used the Foundation seizing method. The sect will ship him to the front sooner or later. My eye twitches at that. A great sect really does run on survival of the fittest, and the arithmetic is brutally practical. I answer every letter the families and sects sent me, one at a time, because a loose cultivator who reached Foundation establishment last month has no business being arrogant. Immortal Master Yuke's force in Cheonsan City looks neutral from the outside, and yet every word and move it makes shifts the whole landscape of Wool State. If the three major sects genuinely fall out, they will never permit a power like that to stay above the fight. I hold the invitation from the city manager and think it through. The positions of enshrined elder and guest elder sound alike and are nothing of the sort. A guest elder is picked for outstanding skill, stays out of internal affairs, and owes only a periodic quantity of talismans or medicinal pills. An enshrined elder lives on the organization's resources and is usually made responsible for guarding a place. Either title gets me a Foundation establishment cultivation technique and matching cultivation resources, and as a second-grade talisman master I collect a talisman legacy on top. What I owe in return is a fixed quota of talismans over the next several decades. A guest elder is freer and leaves my cultivation alone, so that is the one I take. I put the city's invitation into my storage pouch and finish replying to the rest. Even in a brothel, there is a difference between selling a skill and selling a body. If Wool State truly collapses into chaos, a guest elder sells his craft and keeps his life, and I intend to be on that side of the ledger. I head out with the invitation without stalling, because I am a first-tier loose cultivator. A man in my position who sits waiting for a better offer only manages to offend the people already asking. The wind and snow are still tearing across the lowlands when I arrive, and the upper half of the Cheonsan City mountain range is holding spring the way it holds it all year. From the mountainside up, the formations are deep enough that the weather simply does not apply. I stare at it a while, thinking that the 100 arts each guard their own mysteries. If a chance at the path of formations ever comes to me, I am not letting it pass. Hunting demon beasts taught me what external aids like that are worth when a man needs to fight above his level. The guards outside the Grand Hall on the mountainside are all chi refining late stage without exception. I announce myself as the loose cultivator Mjangan come to pay a visit and produce the invitation, and none of them risks the slightest sloppiness in front of a Foundation establishment cultivator. One asks me to wait while he reports it. Standing there looking down over the whole of Cheonsan City, I feel something turn over in my chest. We may all be cultivators, but the top of this mountain and the bottom of it are two different worlds. Then an ethereal, familiar voice congratulates me on reaching Foundation establishment by the righteous path, and the person receiving me is the last one I expected. It is So Mioium, whom I met once at Unyo's Immortal Cave, personal disciple of Immortal Master Yuke the Black Tortoise. She is in a gray Taoist nun's robe with a fly whisk in her hand, and no expression at all as she bows and invites me in. Returning the invitation already stated my purpose, so she is courteous about it and leads me into the hall herself. Along the way, she explains that this is where Cheonsan City handles its administration, and that a city still needs people to govern it even when every resident is a loose cultivator. She walks me through the industries the city runs while I nod in the right places. We stop at a pavilion set right at the mountain's edge, with the whole silver-frosted city spread out below, and she offers me tea. Sipping the spiritual tea, I feel the strangeness of it land on me. After the road I walked to get here, I am drinking tea and discussing the Tao with a Foundation establishment cultivator and calling her fellow Taoist. So I put on a melancholy face and tell her honestly about my first-tier loose cultivator background. I know something about talismans, and I have never been skilled at combat or killing. The Taoist nun across from me takes it with real sympathy, because her status is high now and she started exactly where I started. Then she gets to business. A guest elder may select one Foundation establishment cultivation technique and 3 second-grade talisman legacies, where an enshrined elder would be allowed 5. There is a gap in the techniques as well, since an enshrined elder is permitted to reach for certain advanced cultivation techniques. The Immortal Cave arrangement is much the same either way, provided free by Cheonsan City. Then So Mioium names the term of the contract, 30 years, and I turn it over quietly. Unyo quoted me nearly the same figure when I asked her about it. All I have to do, So Mioium says, is deliver the corresponding talismans each year. The whole conversation lasts about as long as a cup of tea and goes down as easy as a spring breeze. Her eyes, though, have a natural flirt in them that argues with every other thing about her. The terms are standard for everyone who does not bring some special ability to the table, so I do not haggle and sign a 30-year spiritual contract on the spot. For becoming a guest elder of Cheonsan City, I collect 3 second-grade talisman legacies, a cultivation technique, an immortal cave, and the city's protection over my head. What I owe is a set quantity of talismans every year for 30 years. It is a loan, plainly stated. A man with a fresh Foundation establishment and a lifespan past 200 years has just borrowed against 3 decades of his own labor. When those decades run out, the immortal cave stops being free unless I renew. We raise our teacups to each other and smile, and I sigh into mine. Resources are scarce in the cultivation world, and a foundation establishment loose cultivator is caught in the same trap as everyone below him. Without leaning on a major force, even finding an immortal cave with a decent concentration of spiritual chi is a hunt. The skill legacies and materials that matter circulate inside the sects where no loose cultivator ever sees them. The path of cultivation has only just started for me. Whatever else the contract costs, for the next 30 years Huang Sohei cannot reach me as long as I do not go wandering. As for what comes after 30 years, the way Wool State is heading, he may well get shipped to the front line first. I would not weep if both father and son died there. At the Iwa Palace station inside the Immortal City, Huang Sohei stares at a returned reply and loses his temper entirely. The man turned down everything Iwa Palace offered, and went to Chonxian City instead. His father walks in with a grim face and tells him to restrain himself, these being troubled times. He asks how a man who insisted on the dual cultivation art of plucking yin to supplement yang could fail with 2 foundation establishment pills in his stomach. Huang Unshan looks more disappointed with every word. The boy is good in every respect except the 2 that matter, arrogance and stubbornness. Huang Sohei grinds his teeth and refuses to accept it. If he had traded his own pill that day for the high-quality one from that Unyo woman, he insists, he would never have needed the secret method at all. That the buyer turned out to be a mere loose cultivator only feeds the fire. His father cuts him off and tells him to prepare himself and to leave for the front line as soon as his cultivation stabilizes. Huang Sohei goes rigid at that, and one look at his father's face is enough to make him swallow it, while his hatred for the loose cultivator who took his high-quality pill settles in deeper. Sects have always been cruel and always run on survival of the fittest, and cultivators with real aptitude and real potential get parked in the rear where they have time to cultivate. He is unreconciled. He does not dare object. Watching his son go quiet, Huang Unqian's expression softens and he sighs. He tells the boy not to worry, since he carries the Huang family bloodline and everything has been arranged for him already. 3 to 5 years at the front, a few merits on the record, and he can be transferred back. With so many eyes inside the sect, the old ancestor needs Huang family members to set the example. The front line buys prestige and proves the family's devotion at the same time. Huang Sohei says he understands, and his face improves. His father nods inwardly, satisfied, since a son can have a rotten temper as long as he stays decisive about the things that count. A person is allowed to be bad. A person is not allowed to lack self-awareness. Then Huang Unshan mentions that he has prepared a spiritual pet as a parting gift, and that the 2 of them will collect it from the Jew family together. His son does not follow, so he explains calmly that word reached him about the Jew family turning up some rare demon beast cub in the Unnu Mountains. Anything that pulls a foundation establishment cultivator out on the road has to be worth having, so they will simply pick it up on the way. He is treating another family's fortune as his own storage pouch. Father and son glance at each other and both of them smile, because the cultivation world has always belonged to whoever eats first. With my guest elder identity jade slip in hand, I go to the Hall of Transmission to choose a foundation establishment cultivation technique. Most of what is famous in the cultivation world leaves me shaking my head. I take the Everlasting art instead. It is an advanced version of the Everspring art with all the same traits, building a solid foundation, accumulating strength over long years, extending life. More usefully, it can hide the ancient cultivation technique I am actually running, since the 2 look so alike that anyone glancing at my mana would read one as the enhanced form of the other. It is a stronger technique than I need. Everything gets decided for safety these days. For the Talisman legacies, I take 3 second-grade forms: the Vajra Talisman, the Godspeed Talisman, and the Firebird Talisman. The Vajra Talisman is the Golden Light Talisman grown up, nearly identical in structure, but able to project outward into a mana shield shaped like a golden dome. The Godspeed Talisman does nothing but make me faster. The Firebird Talisman is the Fireball Talisman grown up, throwing a Firebird 10 feet long that flies like an arrow off the string, with far better control and much more force. Defense, speed, and attack, which covers both halves of a fight. 30 years of quota work for that is a price I can live with. Behind me on the pavilion, So Mioyam turns over a report on my life with visible interest. Born in the mortal world, made a name with a style of fast sword, entered service at the Unprince's mansion, happened to be present at the mansion's banquet when spiritual roots were tested. Later attached himself to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market as a loose cultivator, welded mortal martial arts grandmaster technique onto cultivator cultivation techniques. Spent 5 years and 8 months in a monster hunting squad. The intelligence is close to exhaustive, and it leaves her narrowing her eyes, because by this account, the man is nothing but a bitter cultivator with a firm Tao heart. If he has talent anywhere, it is in talisman making. She remarks that the fellow Taoist Unyo specifically asked her to keep an eye on has turned out to be spectacularly boring, and something in the report makes her break into a rare smile. Unyo sits beside her sipping tea with her face carved out of ice, saying it is nothing to read into, only a friendship of many years. The alchemy business provoked that evil dog of the Huang family and started with her, which is why she mentioned it at all. She adds that she never expected So Myoyan to go and receive him in person. While she says it, her eye catches the corner of the intelligence jade slip that So Myoyan has deliberately left angled toward her. The record notes that at the age of 40, disheartened, he and his good friend Li Lu drank 3 courtesans into a stupor at a brothel. Unyo's eye twitches and she says nothing at all. So Myoyan hands over the ice soul spirit object she came for and offers advice with it. The Gyesu divine art she practices is savagely yin and cold, and is not complete, and for all its power she needs to watch for the technique turning on her. Unyo answers that she knows, and that the cultivation world changes too fast for caution, since even a foundation establishment cultivator sent to the front line is only a slightly larger ant. The trade closes under her cold expression. So Myoyan shakes her head and lets it go, because in the cultivation world strength is the only argument anyone finishes. Coming home to my immortal cave, I find Li Lu waiting, and behind him the Ju family patriarch, Ju Inmo. I cup my hands to both of them with a smile. The patriarch is a veteran foundation establishment cultivator with real presence, and though he is plainly anxious, he returns the greeting without a wasted motion. I keep no maids here, so Li Lu handles the tea himself, easy and practiced in a cave he clearly knows well. Pouring for the patriarch in front of me does his own standing no harm either. Jo Inmo sips, chuckles, and opens with congratulations on my foundation establishment, because the pill is burning a hole in his patience. I tell him he is too kind, and that back at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, I have no idea when I would have made it without the Ju family's help. We trade pleasantries while Li Lu keeps his head down and keeps the cups full. Then the patriarch can no longer hold it and says he heard from Li Lu that a foundation establishment pill was still in my hand after the breakthrough. The Ju family is a large foundation establishment clan with only 3 foundation establishment cultivators to its name, and a 4th would thicken the family's foundation considerably. In times like these, the pill is a strategic resource that never reaches an open market. I confirm it, saying that by Unyo's good fortune 2 pills came out of the furnace, that I swallowed the premium one, and that 1 remains. Then I take an exquisite jade bottle out of my storage pouch and crack it open. Faint purple spiritual light spills out with a medicinal fragrance nobody could mistake, and beside me Li Liu's mana throbs from a single breath of it. That alone says what a foundation establishment pill is. He looks openly envious, and he is still at the chi refining 6th layer. Jo Inmo's face twitches once before he takes a breath and puts his composure back on, then asks me plainly to name whatever I want. He is no fool. Sending word through Li Liu meant this was never about spirit stones, and he does not believe friendship alone would steer the pill to his family. Everyone at this table has lived for decades, so I see no reason to be coy. I tell him what he already saw walking in. The green-horned ox I keep outside my immortal cave has reached the late stage of the 1st layer, and its growth has crawled to a stop. Almost 8 years I have raised that animal, and the improvement has thinned out to nothing. And on this road, it will never touch the 2nd layer. If raising spirit beasts were simple, the Ju family would not be famous for beast taming, and the cultivation world would have no beast taming sects at all. The 6,000 or 7,000 spirit stones the pill would fetch mean nothing to me. Combat power on my spirit pet means survival. Jo Inmo catches up and quietly relaxes, because any other treasure would have made him hesitate, and beast taming is the one field his family owns. He says he saw the greenhorned ox on his way in, that it is well raised and clearly cost me effort, and that the path of beast taming still runs deeper than effort. The beast taming Ju family holds its own improved spirit feeding pill. As for whether the beast breaks into the 2nd layer, he shakes his head slightly and cups his hands rather than promise anything. Then he names his terms. 1 2nd layer beast spirit pill, 10 bottles of spirit feeding pills, and a body of insight on raising spirit beasts, all for the foundation establishment pill in my hand. A demon beast climbing to the 2nd layer is the same coin flip as a chi refining late stage cultivator climbing to foundation establishment. Nobody finds it easy. A beast spirit pill carries a real chance of pushing a spirit beast through its breakthrough, which makes it the animal world's foundation establishment pill, simply less rare. Add 10 bottles of spirit feeding pills and the value comes out even. I accept without drawing it out, and the Ju family smiles. Jo Inmo, meanwhile, is nursing a private regret. This man once wanted to marry into his family, and if the clansman who turned him down had not already left the world, the patriarch would dearly love to go home and shout at him. A foundation establishment seed was shown the door, and the family chose the plain, honest-looking fellow currently refilling everyone's tea. What a waste of a decision. After Ju Inmo goes, Li Lu stays behind, rubbing his hands with an embarrassed face while he lays out the errand his family handed him, and the patriarch's daughter comes up. I nearly lose a mouthful of tea. He scratches at his head and hurries to explain that Ju Bingun holds a medium-grade spiritual root, is genuinely gifted in the Tao of alchemy, and is by all accounts extremely beautiful. Since this is a family task, he was obligated to say every word of it out loud. I shake my head at him, smiling, because this is exactly what changing status does. When a man has neither strength nor talent, the world haggles over him even as a live-in son-in-law. A few short decades later, the daughter of a foundation establishment patriarch can be pushed across the table at him. So this is what strength buys, and I still say no. The cultivation world is in flux. Wool State is one bad month from open war, and a man carrying as many secrets as I am has no business taking a wife and fathering children. Where would the time even come from, between the marriage and the children and the descendants after them? I want spirit stones, and spiritual liquid, and an immortal vine that stops going hungry. Li Lu looks at me with naked envy and says he cannot believe I am turning down the patriarch's pride and joy. Then he admits I am right, since life out here is precarious, and the Wang family vanished exactly that fast. He says it with real feeling. Nobody predicts tomorrow. The Wang family was strong enough to hold the Zhu family down until they could barely breathe. After one turn of the wind, there is not a single Wang left in the Green Bamboo Mountain Market. He is also thinking about how the Zhu family turned me away as a live-in son-in-law once, and how I now sit across from their patriarch as an equal. So I tell him the cultivation world is unpredictable, and that a man sometimes has to give things up, and I hold his eyes while I say it. He knows exactly what I mean. The rank-breaking pill is for using, not for admiring, and strength is the only thing that ever settles anything out here. Li Lu smiles bitterly and admits he knows, then shakes his head and says everyone keeps a few unrealistic fantasies stored away. He never dreamed of standing where I stand. He only wanted to climb on his own strength so that the chi-refining ninth layer might still be waiting for him someday. Inside the Zhu family, he could then stand between children like Zhu Ilbium and the weather. At the chi-refining ninth layer, he would be a senior manager in that household with a standing nobody could argue with. He says I am right anyway, and that once he gets home and prepares himself, he will take the rank-breaking pill. I already understand the shape of the other thing, that the marriage offer is genuine and that it also works as a screen. If I had any interest, the Zhu family would gladly arrange it. If I have none, the proposal still gives everyone something to talk about instead of the foundation establishment pill that changed hands today. The source of that pill cannot be admitted publicly until the family has already used it. The two of us look at each other and laugh out loud. Two boys walked into the cultivation world over 30 years ago, and neither one of them is green anymore. The wind and snow pass and Cheon City comes back full of life. Standing on the mountainside looking down at all of it from the new height, I feel something shift in my chest. No wonder every single person here claws upward, since only from higher ground does anyone get to see further. My foundation establishment Immortal Cave looks out on a completely different world than the one I rented before. When I turn, the corner of my eye catches the three highest peaks, and through my spirit eye I can see the spiritual chi gathering over them like weather. A golden core cultivator. There is no law of heaven that says it cannot be me. I have talent nobody has measured properly, and an ancient secret technique nobody knows I hold, so there's no reason to fail. The panel reads lifespan 55 out of 205, because the snow has ended a year, and the loose cultivator Im Jangan of Cheonseon City is 55 years old. Inside the cave, I hold the spirit pen with my whole attention and draw a second-grade talisman, and the instant I lift the pen, the spiritual light rises and the thing is finished. The panel moves the second-grade talisman master skill up by 2, and takes it out of entry into proficient at 1 out of 500. From today, I am a true second-grade low-grade talisman master. A single second-grade low-grade talisman sells for 1 to 2 medium-grade spirit stones, and 1 medium-grade spirit stone trades for 150 low-grade spirit stones. For comparison, a first-grade high-grade talisman used to bring me 50 low-grade spirit stones, and that was already an inflated wartime price. 40 years of drawing paper for coppers, and now I get paid in medium-grade spirit stones. Most foundation establishment cultivators never move their crafts past the first grade, because the jump to the second is genuinely hard and comes down to talent. A talisman genius who was already producing quasi-second grade work in the chi refining late stage breaking through after foundation establishment is a perfectly natural story, and nobody will look at it twice. The trouble is that second grade talismans do not sell the way the old ones did. Only a foundation establishment cultivator can use one, and there are not many of those in Cheonseon City, and a fair number of them draw their own. My brows come down as the real problem shows itself. A gifted talisman master turning out more than the average is fine, and by what I know, there are 2 other geniuses in this city running at 3 times the ordinary output. My output is at least 10 times. I turn the problem over, and it does have answers, just not comfortable ones. Selling in secret to demonic cultivators, to rogue cultivators, or to the divine sword sex people is the fastest of them. I throw it out before the thought finishes forming, because the spirit stones would be small, and the risk would be my neck. What works is quieter. My open production goes to twice the norm. Another 1 or 2 times worth gets moved discreetly through the market for materials, spread thin and aimed mostly at monster hunting squad cultivators who buy in odd lots and ask nothing. That accounts for 4 times over. 6 times over is still sitting in my hands, and even that is not the thing keeping me awake. My panel says Foundation Establishment early stage at 2 out of 100, and the Eternal Evergreen Art at entry, 1 out of 100. I sit looking at both lines with nothing to say. A technique I can forgive, since it runs all the way to the nascent soul realm, and an art like that is supposed to resist comprehension. The cultivation is the wound. I broke through recently enough that no movement is expected, and I can still feel exactly how slow the crawl is. My low-grade spiritual root has brought my cultivation speed to something close to a standstill. 10 times the output of second-grade talismans converted into spirit stones would be a cup of water poured into a dry field. The limits of a poor root only became obvious after Foundation Establishment, since everything that used to accelerate me during chi refining has quietly stopped working. The Eternal Evergreen Art is strong, and it shares the wood attribute habit of every technique like it, steady in the early stage, obsessed with Foundation, saving everything for a burst much later. So the question is whether I am meant to sit in the early Foundation Establishment stage grinding for another 50 or 60 years. 200 years of lifespan looked generous a month ago and looks like a sentence now. A man with my gift, an ancient technique, and the enormous opportunity of the Hyanshan Immortal Vine is not going to spend the century watching moss grow. Raising my spiritual root aptitude would erase the whole problem at a stroke. The secret techniques and spirit pill treasures that can do it exist somewhere far above a Foundation Establishment cultivator's reach, so I do not waste an afternoon on the idea. That leaves medicinal pills. Second-grade pills that assist cultivation would lift my speed enormously, and whether swallowing too many of them makes core formation harder later is a problem for a man who has strength worth protecting. If I cannot even grow, core formation is a word, not a plan. I will worry about it at the late Foundation Establishment stage, because the cultivation world is stuffed with treasures and only strength ever gets to reach for one. So the hours I save by drawing faster than everyone else go into alchemy instead. It is not that I would refuse to simply buy the pills. Anything that raises a Foundation Establishment cultivator's cultivation is rare enough to count as a strategic resource inside the 3 major sects, and it does not come out. Pill formulas and materials are another matter entirely, and spirit stones buy both. A man lives off what grows around him, and the Unmu Mountains next to Cheonseon City are thick with spiritual plants and spiritual fruit for anyone with money. Alchemy, then. Nobody on Earth would expect a second-grade talisman master to burn his time learning a second craft. Second-grade pills leaking into the market would change nothing, since I would eat most of what I make and the whole state is already in chaos. In Cheonseon City alone, the number of cultivators quietly buying spiritual plants and medicinal pills for cultivation or for healing is absurd. The cleanest example is anyone preparing for Foundation Establishment, who buys the same plants and fruits a Foundation Establishment cultivator can use to push his own cultivation. One more buyer moving carefully makes no ripple, and neither would 10. The loop closes on itself. Talismans earn spirit stones buy spiritual plants become medicinal pills, and the pills go down my throat and turn into cultivation. A second-grade talisman master running a secret alchemy operation out of his own cave, and my talent finally stops going to waste. I do not even have to fear pills reaching the market, because the demand is nothing like the demand for talismans. A second-grade talisman needs powerful divine sense to control and release, which locks every chi refining cultivator out of the market entirely. Medicinal pills have no such restriction, and the chi refining late-stage crowd is starving for second-grade pills, so the buyers are everywhere and none of them ask questions. Selling talismans quietly invites exactly the kind of attention that ends careers. What I cannot do is let the talisman path slide, because that craft is the whole foundation of my public identity. The day I can turn out high-grade second-grade talismans, or quasi-third-grade ones, even Immortal Master Yuk of Cheonseon City will come recruiting in person. Quasi-third-grade and third-grade talisman masters can be counted on one hand, inside the 3 major sects, and a man that scarce finds core formation resources arranging themselves around him. Thick smoke boils up out of the pill furnace as I lift the lid with my object manipulation technique. The acrid cloud packed inside detonates the moment the seal breaks and shapes itself into a fire dragon. Cyan light flickers as my protective spiritual light spreads into a mana shield, and the flames never touch me, and I shake my head anyway. Another batch destroyed. I badly underestimated the art of alchemy. In the monster hunting squad, knowing spiritual plants meant knowing what a thing was called and how old it looked, and a real alchemist's grasp of medicinal properties is a different discipline entirely. Ever since I decided to learn this in secret, I have been going to Dabo Tower under a disguised identity. There I paid too much for a second-grade pill furnace and a stack of pill formulas. If the difficulty of the talisman path lives in its legacy, the difficulty of the alchemy path lives in reading the medicinal power of every plant. It also lives in the price of the materials burned along the way. Every batch costs a great many spirit stones, and even I cannot afford to keep torching them. A full dozen batches of precious herbs have gone into smoke, and I have not properly begun. Boy once said the heart of alchemy is pharmacology. An alchemist has to know the character of every spiritual plant, then combine them by age and medicinal property before a pill ever forms. That is why alchemists discussing the Tao mostly trade insights about spiritual plants and spiritual fruit, rather than about furnaces. At the Chwaizen Tower gathering, he told the whole table, smiling, that he would pay well for any pharmaceutical classic that came across their hands. So the answer is to go find Boy. The flames thin out and leave a few scorched reddish pills at the bottom of the furnace, giving off a burnt smell, and reading the pill formula again makes my eye twitch. I collected every spiritual plant it names, and the ages varied, and the harvest seasons and harvest methods varied, and all of that changes the medicinal strength of what goes in. I followed the listed proportions and the listed method to the letter, and never accounted for the part that cannot be written down. That part is an alchemist's own feel for medicinal property and the fine control that comes with it. That is why I have failed a dozen times running. Reaching foundation establishment really did make me arrogant about other people's crafts, and the 100 arts are deeper than any of us admit. My own naivety is funny to me now, and I still expect to improve quickly. Refining first-grade medicinal pills with foundation establishment mana and foundation establishment control of divine sense is nothing like doing it from chi refining. An ordinary chi refining cultivator manages a handful of batches a month. As long as the materials hold out, I can refine every single day, and my technique's recovery keeps my mana fuller and returning faster than most foundation establishment cultivators could manage. I sweep the ruined pills out of the furnace, shut down the pill refining room built into my immortal cave, and cast a spell to wipe every trace that any of this happened. Out in the courtyard of the cultivation grounds, the greenhorned ox is soaking in its pool with the sun on its back, chewing a lotus leaf. When it sees me come striding out, it grins and lets out a delighted moo. So I laugh and tell the foolish creature that it eats spirit-feeding pills every day at my expense. If it has not broken through to the second layer within half a year, it can start shopping for a large pot. Water slaps against the stone as the beast's eyes go wide, and it watches me walk away as if it cannot believe what it heard. The day before yesterday, I was patting its head and praising the high-grade bloodline in it. It moos after me, deeply wronged. Business at Chwaizen Tower has been booming since my breakthrough. Everyone in the market knows there is a foundation establishment cultivator standing behind the place, and that he is also a second-grade talisman master. Leaning by the window with a suitably melancholy face, I tell Bui about a friend of mine getting on in years with no hope left for cultivation. The man wants a craft to live on, and having discovered how broad and profound the alchemy path is, he asked me to make inquiries on his behalf. Bui goes very quiet. Then he says that each of the 100 arts guards its own subtleties, and that pharmacology is broadly the same for everyone, while every alchemist develops private insight. 2 alchemists working from one pill formula will differ in a dozen small ways. He does, he says, have the 100 herbs classic his ancestors handed down. He pulls a bundle of jade slips from his storage pouch. As he passes them across, he tells me earnestly that my talent on the talisman path is extraordinary, and that I should not let it sit idle. My smile comes out awkward, because the excuse was thin, and both of us know it. He lets it go without another word and shakes his head to himself, since the cultivation world is full of men who will not turn around until they have walked into a wall several times. The 100 Herbs Classic is worth every bit of Boy's ancestry. It is nothing like the mass-produced copies sold in the open market. It records the growth environment and effect of every spiritual plant, marks the approximate medicinal power at different ages, and for some plants sets down what the leaves do and what the roots do. It is a complete and patient introduction to medicine for anyone refining pills. No wonder I kept failing. With a direction in hand, the rest is only work. Boy seems to notice something out the window, gives an awkward smile, cups his hands and takes his leave, leaning on his iron crutch as he goes. His legs healed a while ago. He keeps using the magical artifact crutch out of habit, and because a cripple attracts less attention than a man who stopped being one. Then a beautiful figure comes into Chwaizen Tower, spots me from across the floor, and breaks into a sweet smile. I shake my head to myself, because the Jew family truly does not know how to quit. I greet her as young friend Jew, and a rare smile gets away from me, since her timing could not be better, and I have a great many questions saved up. The arrival is Ju Binggun, daughter of the current patriarch of the beast-taming Jew family, young enough to still be called young and already at the chi refining 5th layer. More to the point, she is a first-grade high-grade alchemist. Because of her family, she specializes in refining medicinal pills for demon beasts to eat, which suits me fine. Beasts and men both swallow pills, and every road in the 100 Arts runs toward the same country in the end. Learning what spirit beasts take can only help a man who is still raising a greenhorned ox. In a soundproof corner of Twizen Tower, a girl in red is explaining to me that the primordial spirit fruit does wonders for a spirit beast, but must never be fed to a fire or tribute one. Jo Bing-eun talks with her whole face, cheerful and quick, and I keep nodding along because the 100 Arts of cultivation really do each hide their own little mysteries. She adds that demon beasts have thick hide and tough flesh and powerful physiques, so their tolerance for medicinal pills runs higher. There is no need to be as gentle with them as with a cultivator. That last part catches on something in me. A powerful physique. She might as well be describing me. With my natal spiritual plant feeding me, my self-healing body is no worse than a demon beast's. I have no confidence in most areas of my life, but my physique is the one gift I was born with, and everyone knows it. So once I get properly skilled at alchemy, perhaps I could push the potency of ordinary pills past where the formula says it should stop. I tell her the timing is perfect, since I am raising a greenhorned ox, and more insight would help me bring the silly thing along. The ox is a convenient excuse and it costs me nothing to use it, because pharmacology is pharmacology whether the patient is a beast or a man. The moment I mention the greenhorned ox, she lights up and does not stop talking. Nobody in the Jew family is unskilled at beast taming, and as a famous high-grade alchemist inside her own clan, her understanding of spirit beasts is anything but thin. One of us wants to learn and the other wants to teach, so the table fills with laughter and I let it. Back when the Jew family tried to matchmake me using a pair of oxen, I assumed they had swallowed the refusal and given up. Instead, the girl came looking for me herself. Admiring strength is human nature. To her, I am a foundation establishment cultivator with a face that is held up better than it deserves, and that beats being spent by the clan on a political marriage to some stranger. She looks simple, but nobody born inside a family is truly a fool. Even if nothing comes of it, she walks away having befriended a foundation establishment cultivator, which is exactly why the Jew family is delighted and has not objected once. She tells me to keep feeding the greenhorned ox high-grade spiritual plants regularly, since that is plainly why it grew so sturdy. By her experience, it could attempt a breakthrough to the second layer within a year or so, provided certain preparations are made first. I nod and smile, and she misses the strange look that crosses my face. The ox grew that robust entirely because Ju Cheong sponsored its diet in the beginning, not because of anything clever I did. Then a frivolous voice drifts across the room, addressing me as fellow Taoist Im, and when I see who has come up from downstairs, I go still. Huang So-hei. He cups his hands at me with an arrogant smile, the aura of a foundation establishment cultivator rolling off in like heat off a stove. I return the greeting and call him young Lord Huang while my heart does something unpleasant in my chest. Last I heard, he was headed for the front lines, so I have no idea how he still has time to come hunting me. The man is narrow-minded to the bone, and since reaching foundation establishment, he has reportedly been making life miserable for that other loose cultivator, which suggests my turn has arrived. 100 thoughts run through me, and I throw out every one of them. I am backed by Chinson City now. On the question of backing, I am not afraid of him. Jo Bing-eun's face has gone white, and there is real panic in her eyes, because she knows exactly what this man is. She says she will excuse herself since her senior clearly has important business. I stand and invite Huang So-hei into the private room, expressionless, mostly to give her a clean path to the stairs. He watches her flee and remarks that I have elegant taste, and regret flickers across his face. If he were not leaving for the front, I get the distinct sense he would have plucked that flower himself. The private room is laid out with spiritual wine and spiritual meat, and I keep my smile mild. He is stronger than me. Fine. If I cannot afford to provoke a man, I can still afford to avoid him, and he seems to think I am the same chi-refining nobody who used to flinch at his name. Backed by Cheonseon City, I may be no great figure, but I would like to see him try something reckless inside these walls. I do not mind bowing my head a little. At worst, for as long as he remains in this city, I simply will not leave my cave. Who is afraid of whom here? My composure clearly annoys him. Twice now his luck has soured because of two loose cultivators, and I am one of them. He tells himself it no longer matters, because the ancient secret technique he acquired inside his sect will slowly repair the damage the foundation snatching method did to him. He says I have good nerve, much better than that fellow surnamed Jin who ran off in secret. That surnamed Jin is the other loose cultivator, the one Huang So-hei strong-armed into trading away a foundation establishment pill, who then went and used it to establish his own foundation. Huang So-hei built his own foundation by an unnatural method and still blames the man for stealing his luck. I keep my disdain behind my teeth and my smile where it is, because if he ever pushes me past the line, I can always go knock on the Divine Sword sect's door. He calls the whole conversation boring. To him, I am a lowlife who swallowed insults and lived with his tail tucked for 20 years. Then I stumbled into Foundation Establishment and decided a useful craft made me the equal of a great sect family's disciple. What the Huang name gave him at birth, he says a loose cultivator could stand on his toes his whole life and never touch. Then he waves a bored hand and gets to the point, asking whether I traded my remaining Foundation Establishment pill to the Jew family for a Beast Spirit pill. The Beast Spirit pill. My stomach tightens, because only the Jew family knew about that, and the Jew family should not be that careless. He is Huang Enxian's son and the descendant of a golden core cultivator of Iwa Palace. Without that, this habit of prying into other people's business would have gotten him killed a dozen times over in a world this cruel. I keep my face flat, admit the trade, and ask him plainly whether he means to buy the pill or simply take it. He raises an eyebrow and laughs, saying I am a smart man and that he will not take advantage of me. And then he produces a low-grade beast spirit pill to swap for mine. The veins at my temples start to move. He gives two soft mocking laughs, claps his hands, and promises to add a piece of news that will make me feel the price was fair. Cat and mouse. And he has decided which of us is which. I am furious, and underneath the fury I am running the intelligence Unyo past me. Before Foundation Establishment, this man practiced a method of plucking yin to supplement yang, which made building his foundation harder but left his magic power far beyond a cultivator of the same rank. As Huang Enxian's son, he almost certainly carries a top-grade magical artifact. Since he came here to trade for a beast spirit pill in the first place, he must have at least one late-stage first-layer spirit beast on him. If we fight, I might lose. My foundation is fresh, and an ancient cultivation technique does not close the gap in raw net worth between me and a great family's disciple. My potential is another matter, but potential does not win today. I think it over and agree. One beast spirit pill is not worth the risk, and there is nothing in that pill I cannot buy with spirit stones eventually. I will remember the debt though, and I file it somewhere I can reach it later. He praises me for being unusual and says it is no wonder the ice fairy Unyo of his sect stays friendly with me. The calmer I am, the more excited he gets, and by the time I hand over the genuine beast spirit pill, he cannot hold the news in his mouth any longer. He asks me why I think Immortal Master Yuk the Black Tortoise came back to Wool State at all. Then he asks whether I truly believe Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion have no fear of a guest who is easier to invite than to send away. Then he tells me the man was injured a long while ago hunting a third-layer demon beast overseas. He returned first to heal and second to arrange the core formation of his illegitimate daughter, So Myoium. He clicks his tongue over her medium-grade spiritual root aptitude and invites me to guess how smoothly a core forms on that kind of foundation. My pupils shrink before I can stop them. Immortal Master Yuk the Black Tortoise, injured, and planning his daughter's core formation from that position. He catches the change in my face and smiles like a man who has found the loose thread. He asks me to guess again, this time whether the original negotiations between the two great sects and Immortal Master Yuk ever included any agreement to assist Somiolium through core formation. Then he waves his hand, drops my genuine beast spirit pill into his storage pouch, and walks out laughing. The shock drains off my face the moment the door closes, and I look at the empty stairwell and call him an idiot under my breath. Some of the shock was real. Most of it was theater, because a man like that will keep probing until he sees something break, and it is cheaper to hand him a break than to let him invent one. What he said, unfortunately, is almost certainly true. As a loose cultivator, the one thing holding my life steady is the protection of Qianxian City. If Immortal Master Yuk is genuinely wounded, So Myoium's core formation is not going to be a quiet family affair. The title of #1 loose cultivator of Wool State was earned in fights, and no man earns it without leaving enemies alive behind him. On top of that, the cultivation world has whispered for years about his ancient opportunity. He is said to have come out of it holding a secret technique that can cleanse a spiritual root and lift a person's aptitude. That is the kind of prize even the three major sects would swallow their manners for. At his peak, with a late-stage third-layer blackwater turtle at his side, no ordinary golden core cultivator would have gone near him. Wounded, with a descendant to push through core formation, every one of them starts wondering how big a bite they can take. A technique that cleanses spiritual roots. Even I feel my mouth water, and I am supposed to be the sensible one. If all that is true, the backing I have been leaning on is not as solid as the walls make it look. That is exactly the point of the conversation I just had. Huang Sohei came to make me panic and to crack my Dao heart, and he paid for the privilege with a pill. That is what these second-generation immortals are. Wicked and never to be underestimated in their methods. A plainer loose cultivator might have walked out of that room with his composure gone and his cultivation frozen for the rest of his life. I write the debt down where I keep the rest of them. If the opportunity ever comes, I would not mind playing Gui Samdo for a day. It also tells me something free. The relationship between Iwa Palace and Immortal Master Yuk is nowhere near as warm as the banners suggest, or Huang Sohei would never have been holding that information at all. My guess is that Cheonseon City is simply worth too much. The two great sects can afford to wait out a core formation cultivator with less than 100 years of lifespan left in him. They cannot afford to wait for a fresh one to rise in his place. His lifespan runs down, but the Blackwater Turtle gets inherited. Thinking about inheritance makes me quietly envious. Set Huang Sohei beside So Mioyam, and there is no comparison at all. She has people arranging her core formation and a late-stage third-layer spirit beast waiting to be handed down to her. She was already past the finish line before the rest of us found the track. I earn every grain of spirit rice I eat with my own 2 hands. Still, the news itself is worth more to me than the pill I lost, and now that I know it early, I intend to prepare. I go back to my cave and cultivate harder than I have in months, quietly, telling nobody. If this comes apart, Cheonseon City comes apart with it, and I would rather be ready than righteous. I keep an ear on the rumored traffic outside my door. 5 months later, word that Immortal Master Yuke the Black Tortoise was wounded, hunting 2 third-layer demon beasts in the Monster Sea Abyss, goes through the city like fire through dry grass. Firelight on my face, the pill furnace in front of me, and my whole attention on the timing. I remind myself that this 100-spirit fruit is not yet 120 years old, so putting it in too early will damage the efficacy of the batch. Under my control, the true fire holds steady. The medicinal power of the spiritual plants and spiritual fruits refines cleanly, and the fusion begins in proper order. I have failed enough times to have built my own standard for how long that fusion should run. The fire flares, the pills take shape, and I let out a breath. The panel moves as the furnace cools. First grade alchemist, proficiency up by 15, 78 out of 1,000 now. When the lid comes off, 18 medicinal pills come up still radiating warmth. Under half a year and my alchemy has moved faster than it had any right to, and most of the credit is not talent. At Foundation Establishment, my energy holds out and my control is a different animal than it was at Shi Refining. More than that, my circle changed. Pharmacopoeias that were absurdly precious to me at Shi Refining are now just merchandise on a shop shelf. Jo Bing-gun, raised inside a family and steeped in this since she could walk, is effectively a talking pharmacopoeia who visits for free. First grade medium grade pills already, which is quick by any measure. If 5 months of study had produced nothing, my aptitude would have been a joke, and instead the thing finally pays out for a man who does the work. Splashing water and a girl laughing somewhere in the courtyard of the cultivation grounds. Jo Bing-eun has her trouser legs rolled up and her feet in the pond, playing with the green-horned ox, which moos at her and pretends to be too lazy to care. The truth is that the ox likes the weak human cultivator who grooms its fur, mostly because she never shows up without spiritual fruits and spiritual plants in her pouch. She calls it a big water buffalo, and the splashed water throws sunlight across her face. The formation over my pavilion dissolves as I step out into the middle of it. She greets me, and I nod, in a decent mood from the batch in my furnace. I thank Miss Ju for going to so much trouble over my green-horned ox. I used to call her little friend Ju, and the change is deliberate. A polite half-step backwards so my position is clear without either of us having to say it out loud. I am carrying a great opportunity and a very long road, and if I ever take a Tao companion, it has to be someone who can walk that road with me. Not someone who stops part way and leaves me one more sorrow to carry up the lonely immortal path. She answers that she is actually here on a family mission, smiling as sincerely as ever, and she understood my meaning before I finished saying it. She is not thick-skinned enough to force anything. What she wants is the connection itself, because a girl friendly with a Foundation Establishment cultivator does not get married off in a hurry. Every month she is not married off is a month she gets to cultivate. Once she reaches the Chi Refining 9th layer, the family will not release her easily even if she asks to go. I ask what the mission is. She says the clan sent her to buy a few talismans, since I am a 2nd grade talisman master. She delivers it with a bright, slightly coquettish smile, while her free hand pulls a spiritual fruit out of her pouch and pushes it straight into the ox's mouth. The animal starts chewing with great enthusiasm and a lot of noise, which sets her laughing again. I tell her I do not have many 2nd grade talismans to spare, since I owe Cheonseon City a delivery quota every month. A 30-year loan is not a large weight on me anymore, but it sits there, and every time I remember it my mood drops half a step. If I ever have a choice again, I will not borrow so lightly. She says everyone knows my talent in the Tao of Talismans, and pouts proudly at me, and the flattery is so brazen that I laugh out loud. I tell her that since she has been taking care of the ox, I will sell her a few. She pulls out more than a dozen medium-grade spirit stones without blinking, which is precisely what the current patriarch's daughter looks like. My eye twitches. At her age, I had never touched a low-grade spirit stone, let alone a medium-grade one. When I first stepped into the cultivation world, I was still counting spirit crystals, the shattered kind nobody bothers to name. The trade is still on the table when a panicked voice comes up from outside the immortal cave. It calls for the young miss, says something has happened to the family, and tells me that something has happened to Li Lu as well. The Ju family grounds are full of wounded cultivators. Ju Bingun rushes ahead of me asking Uncle Cholson whether he is all right, her nerve gone the second she sees the state of the courtyard. Jo Chulson is the Foundation Establishment cultivator the clan gained after the Wind Spiritual Root Genius fell, and he is younger than I am, which I have decided not to think about. Right now he is holding a ruined arm and looking like a man who has lost something he cannot replace.